What is up, everybody? This is Damage Per Second Podcast, episode 205. We are living great. Your boy Forte got great news on his Michigan front, where the Michigan Wolverines just flipped the number one prospect, number one quarterback. Yes, number one quarterback in the net. I got to tell people why I'm excited today and why my voice is a little bit elevated. But yeah, we flipped them. Listen, I know it really was nothing that happened this week in gaming. No, listen, there was nothing that happened this week. Listen, compared to this, listen, compare.
Came out,
listen,
which you don't have on the list here.
Good thing I had you still muted and these people couldn't hear you. But like I said, once again,
why are you still starting the podcast with me muted?
I didn't want to unmute you because what you were talking about made no sense. But once
again,
I
was talking about telling you why you talking about Michigan football.
So people can hear you now. But listen.
Exactly.
I'm just trying to let people know why I'm excited, just like why you would be excited for something, and that's why I'm happy right now. I would be happy just because I'm doing the podcast with you, SloMo. You already know that. But I'm even more happier because we just had the flip of the century. But and if you would have gave me time, I would have got to that, and I would have said but we're not a football podcast, so I'm just sharing, my life experience with our homies out there. Mitchie dies a lot, Spider. Man,
I don't see the video game awards on the topics list.
Yeah, you're right. I put it on there. I forgot all about that. That was early in the week, wasn't it?
Too busy caring about Michigan football.
Yes, Michigan football, greatest football. Michigan and the Detroit Lions all in one state. It's great. Shout out to Man Overboard. Shout out to Rob. Shout out to shout out to you guys. Really appreciate you guys being here early. But like I said, this isn't a video. This is a video game podcast, and I am gonna actually add. I forgot to add it underneath Avowed, but the video game awards and stuff is underneath that. I'll just add it in. With that being said, I want to introduce you guys to the man, the myth, the legend, the man of many slaps, the man that makes my job easy, and the one that I love to do this podcast every week, even knowing he slanders and says we're not a football podcast, even knowing I'm happy about it. SloMoBackSlap, how you doing today? What you been up to, and what is going on, sir?
How was that slander? Those are facts.
It's not facts, but whatever.
Those are facts.
If you was to come out and say something that I didn't care about and you were excited about it, I'd be like, you know what? I'm happy. I'm happy that
I wouldn't be starting the podcast with it.
Would you want me to
make it? Podcast just started.
I could have made it a topic.
No.
Okay, then. Not. I could have made it a topic.
You make it a topic. This is might as well be a topic. Is what we're talking about.
No, we're not talking about it no more. You're the one that let this keep going. No, what's up, John Wolf? How you doing, bro? SloMo up here being upset about me talking about football when great things happen. But okay, go ahead, SloMo. Tell everybody what's going on with you.
Oh well, I'm old. That's what's going on with me.
Is your birthday today or something? Tomorrow?
No. My body is just old. I for some reason I don't know how this happened. Back then I used to play football when I was younger. I separated my shoulder, playing football. And, it wasn't that, it was a pretty bad separation, but it healed and, it was fine. I did also broke my collarbone at the same time when the shoulder separated, but that never really got bad doctors. Okay. Let's just say that they never got it fixed regardless of that. Here I am about 20 or so years later, and I just wake up one day and my shoulder is just on fire. I don't know why. And it hasn't stopped hurting for the past 2 days. So that's what I've been dealing with, just this bum shoulder. But I mean, outside of that, I've been good. I've been playing a lot of. I've been playing actually a lot because I haven't with the way my shoulder's been hurting. I haven't really felt like sitting at my desk like that. Outside of work, I had to drive into work today to do some stuff physically in the office. But I've been playing a lot of games through cloud instead of actually. That and remoting to my PC from my NVIDIA Shield. But and I've been playing a lot of Veilguard through cloud, and been pretty dope. Shout out to GeForce Now, and shout out to Moonlight and Sunshine, which are the programs I use to stream from my PC. Now, the times I didn't stream is because, with power usage and everything, I'm just like, when it's late at night, and it's later, and I know my solar panels ain't compensating for all the power my PC's pulling. I'm like, all right, I'll just use GeForce Now then, and it's like GeForce Now is so good that the latency is, I mean, it's like no different than me streaming from my PC. So a lot of Dragon Age Veilguard. I beat the game.
Nice.
I think I may have mentioned that. I think I may have mentioned that last week that I beat the game.
No, you said you were close to. No, you did say you beat it. You did say you beat it.
Okay, yeah. I am on my way to beating it with the rogue character I have. So like I said before, I had create 3 characters. The what you got on the jumbotron is my footage for the mage, and I have a rogue and I have a warrior. The rogue is already like there's this blighted dragon that's like a level, like max level 50. I beat that blighted dragon at level 31 with my rogue, and it just kind of proves that certain people who do reviews and say things like the enemies have too much health, or it takes too long to beat things, and I had to drop it down to easy. They don't know what they talking about. Their skills in gaming is minimal. Okay, they don't know what they're doing, because it's really all about having a monster build. The build I put together with my rogue, I think I beat that same dragon at like level 35 or something with my mage. Beat the dragon at level 31 with my rogue. Frankly, it was kind of easy. So if you know what you're doing and you got a nice build, which I do, and it's not, I'm not trying to brag. I'm just saying that like the game has got really good build diversity, but like the difficulty really comes from people just really not paying attention to what they're doing and just throwing gear on. Oh, well, this has this has the main attributes.
They give them a stat boost, and that's it.
Yeah,
they're not really looking at the build as a whole.
Yeah,
building something.
Right, their skill tree doesn't work for what they're doing. Their build, what the gear they put on has zero symmetry whatsoever. It's not helping them in what their skill tree is doing. Like, pay attention to what you're doing in the game, and then you won't have these problems. And pay attention to what you're putting on your rook, your main character, and you won't have these issues. I feel like, yeah, you know what, you got that. Remember with. I think you have the issue with OBS where you remember when a while ago I was playing some footage, and the footage was I believe there's something going on with an encoder or OBS. It's the AV1 encoders, and I believe when certain footage is recorded a certain way, OBS doesn't show it correctly, and so it kind of like runs it in slow motion, because that's how I'm seeing the footage right now. It looks like it's in slow motion. It's just weird. But I remember that happening with, I can't remember what footage I had before, but yeah, I don't know.
I remember it being something with Call of Duty. I think you had it was like moving at like 75% speed.
Yeah, that's what it's doing right now from the way I'm seeing it right now.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now too.
I wonder if that is it's not that big a deal. We can talk about it later. But it's just I think it is the encoders that you're using right now to stream that's causing it. Because it's just not compatible, or it depended. When was the last time you updated OBS? Because I think OBS has fixed this issue with OBS in newer updates, but you haven't updated in a while, then you're probably out of
No,
date,
because
and that's
it's
why.
probably, I think I updated last month because I every time I look to think about updating, it's my week of the show and I don't want to break anything, so I don't do it.
That's what I do. I don't update when I'm streaming because
Like when I'm because
yeah,
every time because that's like the only time I really pull up OBS normally, and when I pull it up, it says you have an update. I was like, well, I'm not doing that today.
yeah. We can worry about it later. But anyway,
it's still showing, but yeah, I can
yeah,
see what you're talking about.
I've been playing a lot of Dragon Age, and I feel like when I'm done playing Veilguard after I beat it 3 times with 3 different classes, I'm probably going to go back to the Dragon Age series. Like I'm gonna like I showed a little bit of footage of because we talked last week about GOG with their preservation team or their preservation program, where they are trying to preserve older games on PC that end up getting delisted, or in the case of Dragon Age Origins, the game was never like when it released on PC, it wasn't that good of a port to begin with, and it's broken and completely outdated for modern PCs. And so they have done actually a pretty decent job in getting it up and running on GOG, and I tested that out, and it's actually pretty good. So I think I might go ahead Origins and play through that again. Maybe just play through the entire series. But I do need to go back, and I need to do this before the Video Game Awards actually drops in December. I think December 12th. I need to go ahead and beat Metaphor ReFantazio.
I don't think it's gonna happen still, but okay, I believe you.
Look, it's going to happen.
It's a week later. You to beat Dragon Age, and Metaphor still sitting there like, what about me?
I'm gonna get the Metaphor. Look.
You gonna beat this game again. Wait, hold on. You gonna beat this game again with the character that you're doing. You just said you're gonna go back and play all the. You gonna go back to the Dragon.
I will beat Metaphor before I go back to Dragon Age Origins.
Look,
I will beat Metaphor.
You are in that BioWare cocoon that you can't get out of, and Metaphor gonna be like, man, 7 months later, I forgot how to play this game.
No. 7 months later, I will be. Look, it's not hard to forget how to play Metaphor, because Metaphor is just an evolved version of the Persona games, and I've played multiple Persona. I played 5 Royal, 4 Golden, and 3 Reload. So, John says Metaphor replay Tazio. No, look, I'm near the end. I guess a frustration
what's
I had.
10 hours. That 10 hours is still going to be there 7 months.
On these 10 hours. And I think the issue that it's a little slight frustration is that I did everything. I did everything. Every time there was a quest that came up, I would do it. Because I don't want to be underleveled, but I'm still severely underleveled, and or at least I feel that way. I talked to Luca about it, and Luca said that she believes people have been just grinding certain aspects of these dungeons, and that's why when I check the stats and see other people who have beaten a particular dungeon, their levels are 10 levels higher than me. Where I'm at right now, most people are at level between 55 and 60, and I'm at level 45. So it's harder to beat because I'm I am under leveled for that section, but people are over leveling themselves to get through the content easier. And then from what everyone who has fought the final boss has told me, you need to be at anywhere between level 75 to 80 to beat the final boss, and I'm pretty much at maybe 2 more story beats before I'm fighting him. So that'll be roughly about 10 hours. So it's
what level are you?
like 45, 47, something like that. Yeah, I'm far
So
away.
what you're
Right?
basically what you're saying is you got 10 hours of game left, but you really got about 20 hours of playtime so you can level yourself up.
Okay, so this is what I was told.
You ain't gonna never beat this game.
Hold on, listen to me. People told me this. There was like, it seems as if Atlas knew that they kind of like, and this is like, I would say, a failing of the game. That it's balancing for the levels of enemies and whatnot is a little off, but it seems like they tried to correct this through game design by actually having, so the final area, the way it's set up is that there's these things that I think they call them magla crystals. And so you'll see a magla crystal and it will just keep spawning like low level enemies at you. The way to stop it is to destroy the crystal, but it's hard to do that because the enemies are like attacking you. And this is the aspects of Metaphor where it's like an action RPG, because you can really like do light attacks and heavy attacks, dodge around, run away, that kind of stuff. And the enemies is aggressively coming after you. And then depending if they're the same level as you or a little bit like higher level than you, you'll hit them. And you gotta hit them hard enough times to stun them, and then you'll hit the Y button, and then you go into the actual like turn-based combat that we know of Persona. And so eventually you'll get to the point where those enemies are so much lower level than you that all you need to do is just hit them in the action RPG aspect, and they'll die, and you'll get the same level of experience. So what people are doing is that they don't kill the magla crystal. They just keep letting it spawn enemies at them, and they level up that way. You see what I mean? And so they're kind of using the game design to kind of get them over leveled. And it seems as if Atlas understood this and set all these magla crystals all around the final area that leads to the final boss. And so it's a way of like, you're probably underleveled and you probably already tried to beat this boss. He curb stomped you. So here is a way to get leveled up and then get more experience for your archetypes, unlock powers, unlock abilities, basically get caught up on everything you need to get caught up on. Because almost everyone I know that beat the game has had to kind of like, they tried the boss, they got bodied, and then they had to go reevaluate some things. And then they
reevaluate my future.
Yeah, and they had to go figure out like, okay, so let me go change up my archetypes. This character's no longer a warrior. I'm gonna make this character a mage now. This one's a wizard. This one's gonna use the faker archetype. That kind of stuff. And then like they come up with their own strategy for it. Or you could be like some of these guys that just use an entire strategy guide as they play through the entire game for the first time. I ain't naming no names. I ain't gonna say who did that. But y'all know who y'all are. Shout out to y'all. And then tried to tell me with slow-mo, I mean, you didn't know blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no, because I ain't used no strategy guide to tell me what to do and all the secrets of the game. So no, I've been just running it blind. And then when I ran into issues with a boss, I figured it out on my own, figured out how to beat the boss.
You didn't run to a YouTube video like how to beat this boss?
Nah. Oh. Yeah. I just wouldn't figure it out on my own. Because like this is what happened, right? You'll fight a boss. You don't know anything about the boss initially. And they'll have a weakness. Well, some of them don't, but you most of them have a weakness. And so what you're trying to do is you'll start testing it, kind of probing. Let me hit it with a physical attack and see what happens. Oh, it reflected it, which is, they have the rewind feature in there. And some people don't think the rewind feature is kind of like an easy mode, but it's good that it's there because using a particular attack that the enemy is strong against, or it will reflect it, will basically wipe out all of your turns for your entire party. So in those cases, You like very easily in this game. You could be winning the battle, and you could make a mistake and get your whole party wiped out. So it's good to kind of hit the rewind feature when you find some things out. Oh, it's weak against fire. Bet. Rewind, start the fight again, and start hitting it with more fire. Or if you ain't got like enough people to do that, you could then, what I would do is just speed the fight up so that I die and go back to my my last save, which is typically like you could like do a little save right outside the boss room. And then I'll put spells on people or the igniters, which is like someone doesn't have the magic themselves internally. They can get like a weapon that will simulate the magic for them. And so you get the igniters or your own spells, and you go ahead and just beat that boss. I mean, it's how the game works. It's the whole game design for it, and it's fine. It's just take some time. Or, you could be looking at a strategy guide. The strategy guide tell you this boss is weak against holy damage, and do not use the strike physical attacks because blah 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 blah. You know how it is. But anyway, let's get into it, man. That's all I've been playing, and I promise I will beat Metaphor before the Video Game Awards. It's a promise.
When is the Video Game Awards?
December 12th.
Well, it gives you about a good 20 days. We'll see. We'll search. If I don't see, what would that be? Game 15 for you beat if you beat it this year?
Oh man, how many games have I beat this year? I feel like I already beat 15. I already beat.
It's either 15 or 16 if I remember, because I saw you posted it on Blue Skies. And if you're not following us on Blue Skies, that's another place you can find us giving our opinions and stuff on stuff like that. But
I am at, for the year, this is so low. I'm at 15, so this would be 16.
Okay, so if I don't see number 16 be Metaphor, I'm gonna let you have it next week, bro.
Well,
not next week.
Number 16 might be something else. You never know. Look. I will beat it.
You just said it. You just said it would be. You said your next game would be.
Thank you, Gregor. Thank you, Gregor. Get him. Gregor says, "I know I did not come in here to hear Forte pressing someone about finishing the game."
Well, listen, no. Yeah, you're right. And guess what? I'm not the one that is going to say that he's going to finish something and don't finish it.
When I say that, people know I'm expect me to finish it. People know I'm being truthful.
We'll see. There's game. I mean, what's up with that Alien Isolation?
Hey, look, man.
Oh, okay. We'll move on.
When do y'all want me to stream Alien Isolation again? Y'all let me know.
We'll move on. We'll move on. John Wolf said he likes your Jumbotron, metaphor.
Oh yeah. We always call the gameplay being shown the Jumbotron, even if it's running in slow motion.
Yeah, we got 3 Jumbotrons, John. We got this one. We got the elongated one for the PC lovers out there, and we got the super wide Jumbotron streaming and stuff when we're streaming events. So, but with that being said, SloMo, let's go through some of these rapid fire topics that we won't do what we did last week and make the rapid fire section 30 minutes long. First topic we want to go to is let's talk about Callisto Protocol. Callisto Protocol has a PS5 Pro patch that's coming that will allow you to play the game at 8K 30 or 4K 60 FPS, both with full ray tracing. The first thing I want to know is, now the developer said this. Part of me wants to say this is a lot of cap especially with what's full ray tracing at 4K 30? And that's a good looking game. The one thing that Callisto Protocol isn't
the only people who believe this.
Like, what is this
People
statement?
who believe anything as long as it makes a certain platform look good.
Oh my God.
And that is bipartisan, as I like to say. It's not exclusive to one particular color of platform. They all do this, but they believe. Look, how many times do we have to say, don't listen to what developers say when it comes to performance? Developers or platform holders, never listen to what they say. Let third party show it. Because if it's real, then it's not going to be just in like a little test scenario. Oh, look, a couple of, 5 milliseconds of footage here and there. Hey, look at that. Isn't that 8K? 8K is great. What did they sacrifice to get to 8K resolution? First of all, nothing on consoles runs at a native resolution. So you already know it's not actual 8K.
Right.
It's either a dynamic resolution. Actually, everything is dynamic resolution. Everything that's been used with PSSR has been with dynamic resolution, which is why all the testing, when in comparison to PC, people have to use certain software to simulate whatever resolution, customly manually putting in the resolutions in comparison to what is constantly changing on a dynamic level on consoles in order to make it fair, so that it's a fair comparison between the console and PC. So right there, nothing on the PS5 Pro is even just straight, here's a locked resolution, and then it's a starting resolution plus the upscaler. That's not even happening like it is on PC. So that's one. Two, so many people are so caught up on what resolution is. They either don't know or they forget that there are other graphical settings that are important. What about texture filtering? What about ambient occlusion? What about, just like lighting and reflections? And what about all these different aspects that make the visual picture look great? When he says full ray tracing, what does he really mean? Is it full ray tracing that was on the PC, or is it full ray tracing of what was available to them on the console? Like, these are things that he's not going to explain in a tweet with limited characters. But best believe when that patch comes out. By the way, I gave you some more footage. I can give you some more footage as well. Okay. When that patch comes out, and then Digital Foundry or Daniel Owen or any of these other tech tubers who don't just give their opinion, they actually show you what they're talking about. When they get their hands on it, then it's a different story. Because you're not reaching a target 8K resolution with an upscaler, with frame generation, with all this other stuff, and getting a locked 30 FPS, really? Like, and correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't that game running Unreal Engine 5?
Mm-hmm.
So, Unreal Engine 5, an engine that on consoles you can barely put on one hand the number of games that run well with Unreal Engine 5 on consoles or on PC, because it's a stutter fest with the versions of Unreal Engine 5 that have been on PC. If it's not Unreal Engine 5.4, you're probably going to deal with a lot of stutters. 5.4 is when Epic solved the shader compilation issue.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why we haven't seen it so far, they solved this maybe about a year ago, but developers aren't going to delay their game to put it on a newer version of Unreal. They're just not. They got their projections. They're going to do what they're going to do. And so what they end up doing is they put it out there. Lego Horizon is running on Unreal Engine 5.3. And it runs terribly from what I've heard. Like, so, that is Epic's fault for releasing an engine and touting features that weren't ready. But that said, that's the reality of it. Unreal Engine isn't great. So when a developer says, we got this game running 8K, 30 FPS, 4K, 60 with full ray tracing. Okay. How did your game run when it first launched? So how did that run before? Okay. Okay. You can't trust that. And I never trust that. It doesn't matter who it is. When Microsoft talks about what they're going to do, I'm like, all right, I'll see. When PlayStation talks that talk, okay, we'll see. AMD, Nvidia, Intel, especially Intel. Good grief, Intel is freaking awful right now. Like, yeah, any of them that talk, I wait until it could be independently tested, or I get my hands on it and I test it for myself, and then I'll know whether it was true or not. Otherwise, you can keep all the noise. I don't care. I don't care what you're talking about. I don't care because it's all marketing. I mean, if we went back to the actual, I'm trying to find the actual. Okay, this is what they said. Fight out of Black Iron Prison in breathtaking 8K at 30 FPS or 4K at 60 FPS, both with full ray tracing. Think about that for a moment. 8K resolution, 30 FPS at full ray tracing. Think about the amount of sacrifices it took to get close to that. And is it going to be a rock solid frame rate? I mean, like, there's just a lot there that's very questionable.
Yeah, when I saw it, I was like, what? When you sent me that, I was like, what does this mean? This isn't giving you, like, granted, it's not like a technical spec that you can actually break out and put on X with. I mean, technically you can if you have premium. Matter of fact, is that a premium account? How did I think about it? No, they can hide it too, so you really won't know. But for the most part, yeah, like Slomo said, just you gotta, what are they telling you and what are they actually saying? 8K, like, what's the name in the cat said, it's probably just a mirror that's in 8K. And like I said, this is a great looking game. Like, it's very, very appealing to the eye. So, 4K 60, I could definitely understand. It's just the whole full ray tracing. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like when a person tries to like, it was like when I was on the Iron Lords, and shout out to Hip Hop Gamer. He was on Iron Lords with us, and he was talking about how on his PS5 Pro, he compared it to a 7900 XT, and he couldn't even see the difference.
Oh, that's like, because that, look.
And I was like, I almost jumped out my seat, bro.
Look, before I say this, let me just preface that with, I really like Hip Hop Gamer.
I love this.
He's a stand-up dude. I like his energy. I like what he does in the community. He's a cool guy, and all my interactions with him have been dope. And shout out to his lady as well. She's cool peoples too. That said, Hip Hop Gamer need LASIK. And if he need me to help him out and getting some LASIK, I'll find him a good LASIK doctor or something. We can work it out. I'll get him a good recommendation or whatever. Because if his lying eyes tell him that PS5 Pro is looking better than the 7900 XTX, he can't see. His vision is bad. He got bad eyes, bad lying eyes. And we need to work on that, because we can't have our brother out here just walking blind out through the world. It's just not good. It's not a good look.
Yeah, so it's just when I hear things like that and I see things like this article, it's like, I'm like, what are we really doing here? Are we trying to talk about and promote the game, or are we trying to promote a platform? And it is what it is on that front. But no, I mean, listen, the fact that it has a PS5 Pro patch, I love it. I love the fact that, we're getting better fidelity and better overall performance for these games and stuff. I just wish that, developers or publishers would come out and tell you exactly what you're getting. But guess what? For the most part, they're not going to really do that, because that would kind of, cut off your nose and slice your face. That's
Right.
something you just don't want to do.
And it's wild that people would believe just straight up believe what is being said by striking distance, when we kind of went through this with Remedy and Alan Wake 2 for the PS5 Pro patch, which, like they said, it was gonna, the performance mode was gonna have ray tracing, lock 60 FPS, all this other stuff, and the image stability or instability, to be more accurate, is pretty strong. It's pretty bad, and it needs some work. Not saying it won't get better, and not saying PSSR won't get better, because it will, and that's kind of really what it comes down to. What I try to impart to people all throughout this whole process with the PS5 Pro being talked about and shown, and people capping and people pretending like they're tech experts, and all this other stuff, was like, you gotta understand that, like, the way technology works, and when companies jump into the technology field, or a particular field in technology, they can't just get caught up on a lot of things that other companies that have been doing that learned all at once. Like this is your first foray into upscaling. Prior to that, we've had AMD with FSR, we've had Intel with XeSS, and we got NVIDIA with the top dog with DLSS. NVIDIA DLSS 1.0 was abysmal. We talked about this, and it got better. And the more they got better, the more they started learning how, like, to make it better. They use AI, machine learning, to help that process along. That has always been part of the reason why they've had a one-up on AMD. And now AMD with FSR4, which will come out next year, will be machine learn based, and at PSSR is machine learn based, AI based, which is great. That's learning what is the better method to use it. But you can't take literally the patented work that NVIDIA has done and use it as your own. You have to come to your own solution, and that takes time. And so I tried to explain to people they're not going to be on the level of a DLSS right off the break. But these are people who don't do this kind of research. They're console gamers that, like, their only real exposure to upscalers or anything of this where it's not native resolution is checkerboard rendering, which was a very popular on the PlayStation platform last generation, or AMD's FSR, which is the worst upscaler. And so they don't really have experience with this, which is not, I'm not, shading them for that. But when you speak in definitive terms about things you don't understand, it just makes you look foolish when you get shown to be completely dead wrong. And so I say all that to say that, like, for Sony, it will take time to eventually get close to where DLSS is. But as of now, from what we've seen, and this has been proven by things like Digital Foundry and other tech tubers out there, there is an image instability with PSSR that's worse than all the other upscalers. There is a noisiness to an image where even if you're not moving, you're just sitting still, you see parts of the environment that are moving. They are noisy, as we typically like to call it. And they shouldn't be. It should be static. You see grass having the appearance of moving, but they're not really moving. What's happening is the upscaler is trying to predict what the next frame should be, and is having a difficult time figuring that out. And so, especially if you're starting from your starting resolution is really low. So let's say with PSSR and these performance modes is starting at 720p resolution, and it's trying to get up to 4K. That's a lot of pixels to make up. And so there's a lot that the upscaler has to fill in the blanks, so to speak, in order to get enough pixels to make it up to what a 4K resolution would be. And it's trying to do that, and it's failing to make the image look accurate. When you see DLSS quality mode, there are some times where DLSS quality mode looks better than native resolution. I mean, you're like, "What's SloMo? How is that possible?" Well, here's how that's possible. DLSS quality mode has a starting resolution that's like, I mean, I don't know it off the top of my head, but maybe it's like 1440p or something like that, somewhere in that range. So it's DLSS doesn't have a lot more to make up to get to a 4K quality image. And then what it's doing is that it is providing that image of the frames ahead of the current frames that you're looking at. It's providing those that look better than native resolution. And when native resolution is on, like, you're not looking at it's like people don't know the difference between like a pure rasterization, which is just the straight native resolution. If you're at 3840 by 2160, that's native. That's the resolution that you're looking at. Without anti-aliasing, it doesn't look great. You're seeing a lot of pixels, and so you're seeing a very detailed image. But you're also seeing a lot of jaggies. With that, anti-aliasing smooths that stuff over. The solution you use to anti-aliasing is the reason why, excuse me, is the reason why performance is the way it is right now. Because the performance is like the cost of smoothing out those jaggies and making it look great. That the more popular solution has been temporal anti-aliasing, which keeps it at the same native resolution, but it's really hard on the hardware. And for a long time, this is what a lot of PC gamers would call real performance. But they didn't really understand what the anti-aliasing was actually doing. And so when they saw stuff like DLSS Upscaler, and it was also doing anti-aliasing as well, but the performance hit wasn't what it was with TAA, temporal anti-aliasing. They called it fake. Or this is NVIDIA using AI to make up for their hardware not being strong enough. But these are mostly AMD fanboys who didn't know what the heck they were talking about anyway. Because at the time, AMD didn't have an upscaler. So you were getting a better image from NVIDIA with better frames, and they were upset about that. So I say all this to try to get people to understand how this stuff works. NVIDIA, like the best anti-aliasing solution out right now is NVIDIA's DLAA, deep learning anti-aliasing, which is so demanding that even a 4090 can't really run it at like max settings, 4K, and depending on the game really hit like 60 frames per second without frame generation needing to be in there to kind of make up the performance that you're not getting. So I say all this to say that like this stuff isn't easy. And when you don't think about all the entire picture of everything that these developers who like their job isn't easy at all. This stuff is difficult. It's when someone just runs out and just says it's AK-30. He's not quite lying to you, but he's not telling the full story. And so when you know more about what it takes to kind of bring the final product to our eyes, then you kind of understand where the questions you might ask start coming from. Oh, you were able to do that with PSSR? What were you using? What's the starting resolution? Is it a checkerboard port rendering? Did you come up with your own solution like the way Insomniac does? Do you have your own kind of upscale solution? What did you do to get that? You know, when you start asking those kind of questions, then you start to see kind of the cracks of it, or just, you know, the things that they're not saying in a very promotional, tweet on X. So I'm done rambling, Forte.
All right, I'm done. Zero done. No, so I agree 100% with everything you said, and people just got to pay attention to the things that are being said around them. All right, let's talk about Grums out here.
Oh God, why?
not taking his cursor off a fake document. So Grums posted a tweet.
Oh, wait a minute. This is about Veilguard?
Yeah, about Veilguard.
But did we talk about this already?
No, we didn't. This is
sure?
new. Yeah.
No, this is not new.
It is. You didn't text it. I'm looking at the list. Hold on.
Forte, that's not new. We absolutely Grums did that before.
No, I'm not saying it's new, but we didn't talk about it last week.
I feel like we talked about it a few weeks ago. We talked because we talked about that when Grums made that fake NDA form right around the time that the review embargo dropped for Dragon Age Veilguard.
Oh yeah, you're right. Never mind. Damn,
Nico, that's
you're
like
right.
2 weeks ago.
No,
Gregor, dementia is in his forte.
Well, no. Yeah. You're right. Yeah.
We've been talked about that. I don't want to talk about Grums ever. I don't want to repeat. No, not. Well, I mean, because we knew it was fake, and the cursor just proved it. But like, I don't.
Just proved it.
That dude, people like him. We need to starve these people out. We need. They do what they do for attention.
Yeah.
And I don't want to talk about that dude any more than I have to. Like, yeah, and I'm not giving him a second.
All right, that works for me. All right. Fable reportedly will have Witcher-like combat.
Yeah, okay.
How do you feel? Like, Witcher and Fable play completely different. So how do you feel about it leading into the Witcher combat style?
Well, I feel like they had to kind of modernize what the combat would be, but also kind of maybe have the roots of what you could do in Fable still be there. So I understood that. Witcher combat, I'm not a fan of Witcher combat, not because of how it looks, but because of how it plays. Like, I don't like the way Witcher. I've always felt like with Witcher. I haven't played Witcher 1. I've played Witcher 2 multiple times, and really, I never really been able to get into Witcher. So that's just me. I'm not a fan. But I've played Witcher 3 a few times. I've played Witcher 2 a few times. Witcher 3's combat's a bit better than Witcher 2. Witcher 2's combat is abysmal. I feel like it's too convoluted. And back then, CDPR didn't even have a combat director, which they seem to have corrected now. Now, all that said, I don't mind I like the way Witcher combat looks. So if and I think this came from Jez Corden, if it looks like Witcher combat, okay, cool. If it plays, or if it's the implementation, the actual like controlling of it is like Witcher combat, then I have a problem. So to me, it's a wait and see. I need to see it for myself. But I mean, I don't think that is in itself like a bad
thing.
A bad thing, yeah.
Yeah. I kind of feel the same way on it. I feel like the one thing that the last Fable the last proper was what, 2007 or something like that. So it definitely needed to be modernized a little bit. And I mean, if you're talking about spells and you're talking about hand-to-hand combat, third person and stuff like that, it's not too many games out there that are better. Even though, and I think the combat in Witcher was really janky to a point, but it was, the story is what carried that game. And the combat was like kind of just a secondary thing to it.
Which it's fine for a lot of. I mean, depending on what you're looking for in your RPGs, that could be fine. It could not be fine. Like
right.
a lot of Western RPGs, when it comes to the combat, it has been somewhat of an afterthought, or it has needed to get better. But the people who have enjoyed those games didn't really like. They weren't there strictly for the combat. They were there for the characters, the story, the plot, the war, the world, the lore, the themes. They love those things about it, and the choices. Because a lot of Western RPGs are stronger on player choice and the player's ability to kind of choose a class and make it their own, versus JRPGs where a lot of the stories are very static. The characters, the plot points, everything is what it is. There's a little bit of build diversity there in classes, but it's not as free as you would get with a Western RPG. But they typically are great on combat, whether it be turn-based or action RPG. However it is, the combat is a winner. And depending on what you're interested in will kind of determine what you tend to like. And I'm just kind of like, I love RPGs, so I actually like both. But it's no surprise that like people enjoy The Witcher the way they do. And I couldn't get into it because I really couldn't get with that combat. And it was always the combat that was holding me back, because I just felt so uncomfortable with it. But, you know, I know that's how like some people have felt about Mass Effect. When Mass Effect Legendary Edition came out, bit dated, you know, the first game was like 2009. So like in 2009, the cover shooting it was the first time BioWare had did any kind of cover shooting whatsoever, like anything that was like anything close to like that. So for them, it was very new, and they didn't do the best job their first foray into it. So they tried to clean that up a little bit, but it still didn't change anything in regards to like, it still didn't change anything as far as people's opinions in regard to the combat. They still felt it was somewhat janky, even though it was actually better than what it was back in 2009. But like that really prevented people from enjoying the game. It prevented people from understanding how good the characters were. It prevented people from understanding like a lot of the plots and the nuance there that was going on in the stories, because you're too focused on, I hate this combat.
Right.
Which I'm not judging anybody for feeling that way, but that can, if something is subpar, it will hinder how people feel about the rest of the experience. And so it is what it is, you know, like you'll get it figured out. And you can choose to like it or not choose to like it. I'm just kind of like, when it came to Witcher, it wasn't for me. Now, Fable, I've enjoyed I even somewhat enjoyed Fable 3, even though Fable 3 is a disappointment. Like I really enjoyed Fable 2 is my favorite. Fable 1's awesome. Fable 2 is my favorite. But I like I said, if it looks like Witcher combat, fine. Plays like Witcher combat, not fine. It all depends on how they implement it. And I hope they don't take the wrong lessons from that combat. What are your thoughts on it, though? What do you think about it?
As long as I just don't want it to, the thing is, I don't want Fable, because Fable is goofy to an extent, so the combat is kind of more looser compared to Witcher's combat felt more intentional. So I feel like it, especially because they're two different, you know, one is more of they're both like fantasy style, but Witcher kind of built itself into this medieval style with the way that its combat was kind of built.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of played. So when you played it, you kind of played it that way. Where Fable was like, you know, you just played it a little bit more looser and stuff. So as long as the combat makes sense, I could care less. I mean, I just want a good playing overall game, and I want the experience to still feel like Fable. And I don't think it having like taking inspiration away from something like Witcher or anything in that vein would really hurt it that much, unless they just completely copied it, which I don't think will be the case. So um it's hard to make improvements in combat without taking inspirations from other games that do it really well. I mean, you can pretty much look at any game and see the combat footprint of many other games, combined inside of that combat. So I'm not, it's not worrisome or anything. I just want to make sure they still stay true to the feel that Fable still had, but just modernize the combat a little bit more so it could be more digestible in 2026 when this game is officially probably going to come out. But with that being said, two last ones really, really quick. Xbox has their xCloud, I think it's the beta coming out soon, where you'll be able to stream games that you already own in your catalog. So you don't have to have Game Pass Ultimate for this, because right now that is tied to a Game Pass Ultimate account. They don't have a separate subscription for that just yet. But if you have your own games, you can stream them to any of the Microsoft or, this is an Xbox platform that is cloud enabled. And that is something they just added literally this week. So SloMo, you are a person that plays a lot of cloud gaming because, like you said, you play on the NVIDIA Shield and everything, or the NVIDIA
recently.
Yeah, recently.
I do more streaming from my internally in my house, from my PC to an NVIDIA Shield than cloud gaming. But I've been doing a little bit more than I did in the past. I used to just do it when I was going on vacation.
Yeah.
But now I'm starting to do a little bit more in the house when I'm just not. I don't feel like being at my desk, and so I can stream GeForce Now to my TV. Whichever TV I got connected to NVIDIA Shield or whatever, and my Wi-Fi in the house is good enough, or if I decide to directly connect it through Ethernet, and then that's even better because it's hard lined. Then it's good to go. And I think Xbox is getting closer to getting what they talked about with, the whole "this is an Xbox" kind of like promotion, where you can't really do that when only on the Xbox can I play all the Halo games.
Right.
You can't really do that when only on the Xbox can I play all the Gears games or the Forza games, or or when it comes to accessing games that I bought, not just stuff that's in Game Pass, but games that I bought. I can't do those things outside of an Xbox or your Xbox, not even on your Xbox PC app, because all those games aren't readily available. And so what you need to do is make sure that people can take their own experiences everywhere. And when you do that, now when you have to have a unified platform, you have to create a UI experience and have the backbone of your entire storefront be PC based instead of based off the console. And now you're able to achieve what your marketing said. Now, I don't know why they did this now and then had the "this is an Xbox" promotion in marketing a week earlier. Why didn't you just have it wait a week and then do it all together? Then it makes more sense. It's more cohesive. It's like, okay, yeah. So like, I get it. This is my TV's an Xbox because I can play Tales of Arise that I bought on Xbox through my TV, and I own it, and it's not in Game Pass. You know what I'm saying? Like now that all this makes sense, it all works. And I think they probably should have just waited a week before they finally did this, but it's good. It's getting there now. That's the feature side of things. The performance side of things, I don't know yet. Like some of the games, and we see some of the publishers that are involved in this, and so Ubisoft is a publisher that's involved in this. Let me double check everything that I saw of the list of games. You can see like the games, the initial games that they are putting in the program. We got Baldur's Gate 3 is in there. Like I said, Ubisoft, because they got Avatar, they got The Division 2, they got the Crew Motorfest, they got Star Wars Outlaws. A lot of the Ubisoft games that have released recently that are in Ubisoft Plus are in there. They got Metro Exodus in there. Phasmophobia just came out on consoles. That's in there. The Witcher 3 is in there. So they got CDPR in there because they got Cyberpunk as well as The Witcher in there. And I actually did. Let me double check. I may have tried Cyberpunk with this. Or maybe I tried Cyberpunk streaming from my Xbox. I think I tried it streaming from my Xbox. It was not as seamless as you streaming from my PC, but that's neither here nor there. It's a good number of games that they're starting out with, and they clearly got some backing from publishers, which was probably one of the biggest hurdles, was getting publishers to be cool with this.
Mm-hmm.
But from here on, now you need to keep adding more games that people already own, older titles that people own, because that's what people tend to find they have a problem with. They want to make sure that like the library that they have amassed, the amount of money that they've spent on these games are going with them, because clearly the console is not long for this world as far as how it's done today. They said they're making a handheld. I fully believe them, but they also said, Bethesda games would be exclusive to for Xbox gamers. A lot can happen in the amount of years that like it's going to be. Clearly, from what Phil Spencer said, it's going to be some years before they come out with their handheld. A lot can happen, in between now and then. And in that case, you don't know for certain. I do still think it's in their plans, but we never know if those plans may change. And if they do stay as they are, and they don't do an actual traditional console, or they just do it handheld, or even if they do both, I think a lot of people are trying to hedge their bets on where they play or they enjoy, quote unquote, Xbox, the Xbox platform. There's a lot of people that's going over to PC. There's a lot of people that are using stuff like a ROG Ally to enjoy what PC has to offer, as well as enjoy what Xbox has to offer. And what is maybe tethering some people to the Xbox console and not allowing them to kind of move on is their game library. They may own over 1,000 games on the Xbox platform. They want to know, like, if I just like, I don't want to keep this Xbox Series X. Do I need to keep that? I kind of just want to move on to the next thing. And can all the games that I bought on that still go with me? And I think, we've seen Sarah Bond speak to this a bit. And I think that's the reality that we're kind of looking at. That's what they'll get to eventually. Forte?
Yeah. Oh, dang! I was literally talking at muted because I was coughing and I didn't want to do it into the mic. See, I'm trying to be better. I think this is a great move. They should have had this implemented before. It should have been a thing that was already there. When it comes to having xCloud tied into it, but with the renewed focus from Microsoft, basically wanting to make sure like this whole push of everything's an Xbox and everything basically with a screen it's an Xbox, this kind of had to happen, because there's gonna be people that don't want to subscribe to Game Pass to play. Like, they don't want to have to subscribe to Game Pass to like stream the games, especially if they already own a lot of the games. I remember us talking about that a long time ago. Is like when Game Pass first got announced, a lot of these games people already own. And it was like, well, will I be able to stream the games that I already own? And it was like, no, you got to have a subscription service to be able to do that. So, fast forward 4 to 5 years, well, actually longer than that, 6 years later, now that's a possibility. And that kind of works for people that are streaming from non-Xbox devices, even though everything's an Xbox. So if you decide that you're like looking on your TV and you get an ad for xCloud streaming on your TV. All you got to do is, have an Xbox controller or a compatible controller, and you can literally log into your account, and games that you already have there, you can start streaming. So that was a great move. It basically gives xCloud a little bit more of a built-in funnel for people that already are inside of the ecosystem or were a part of the ecosystem, but they may not have the console or anything like that anymore, but they still have the games because the games are still there, no matter if you're not there no more. So I think it's a great move, but I do agree with you when you say this is just the beginning. Phil Spencer talked about it. A lot of people talked about how their efforts on just the Xbox app itself is one of the more more tiring things that they need to work on the most. It's great to see that they're working on the streaming side of it, but they need to work on the
By the way, I sent you some more Dragon Age Veilguard footage. This might work better than what the other one did. It's in 4K, just to give you a heads up. So yeah, it's you could try that, and maybe it won't have the slow motion effect.
Yeah. I see it. I'm about to download it now. But yeah, that's what I kind of think about that. Last one, Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is not working on a PS5 Pro patch.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense to me because they're probably looking at this like, we can't make this game look or run any better than it already looks on console. And I think the level of fidelity that people will want to see from something like Cyberpunk on console is almost PC level, and that's not going to happen on that system.
Yeah, I mean, like I think a lot of times, because I've seen some people try to do some some fakery, say this is Cyberpunk run. I've seen a picture of someone saying this is Cyberpunk running on PS5 Pro.
Psych.
and it wasn't. It was Ray Trace Overdrive Cyberpunk running on PC. Probably on like a 4090 or a 4080 Super, and I'm just like, yo, that's not cool. Don't stop trying to like fake stuff. And I do get people wanting, like, it's one of the best games that have come out, in the past 10 years or so, right? So like people, it's an amazing game. People want to play it with the best like visual fidelity possible, and I think what it kind of comes down to is, unfortunately, CDPR has moved on. And so, like, in a more recent episode, I talked about my disappointment that they dropped a update that provided gamers access to FSR 3.0, even though FSR 3.1, which is the difference between 3.0 and 3.1, is pretty significant. And 3.1 was already out, and they still did 3.0 instead of 3.1. And I'm like, bro, why'd you do that? They added AMD's frame generation, but the implementation of it wasn't very good. Like, so you have to restart the game in order for it to work, and sometimes it still won't work. And then there was already the DLSS frame generation that was in there. It broke that. So they broke a lot of things, in addition to just overall performance being like a good 10 to 15 frames, maybe depending on the kind of hardware you have, 20 frames less than what it was before.
Right.
So people was just like, bro, can you fix this, please? Because like it was great before you dropped your final patch. It was great before your final patch. What are you doing? And it's been radio silent from CDPR since then. And people ask, and they have not responded. And I think they haven't responded because the response is, no, we're not going to fix it.
We're not going to fix it. Right.
So PC guys, they have some recourse, and it's the modders. Go to the modding scene from this point forward to get your optimizations and fixes for where CDPR left it, which is unfortunate, but the entirety of CD Projekt Red is now working on the next Witcher game. They are not touching Cyberpunk anymore. It is unfortunate. If PS5 Pro came out 6 months earlier, they would have had a PS5 Pro patch for Cyberpunk. But it didn't. And they had less than the skeleton crew even doing patches on Cyberpunk 2077 for the past year. Everyone else, the bulk of the studio, has been moved on to The Witcher. And now they need even more kind of work because they're transitioning off of their Red engine, their proprietary engine that they're no longer using, to Unreal Engine 5. So it's all hands on deck. And they're just not going back to the Red engine. They're not going back to Cyberpunk anymore. And so that's unfortunate. A lot of, disappointed PlayStation gamers. And I get it, because I would be disappointed too, because you have a more capable piece of hardware now that should be able to do more. I mean, the game already on PS5 in performance mode has been optimized well enough by CDPR that it runs at roughly 60 FPS and it really only drops in the most demanding areas, but it is running with an upscaler, the FSR 2.0 upscaler, which is not great. There's a lot of ghosting. There's a lot of artifacting and noisiness in the image. And if you put that on FSR 3.1 or PISR, the PSSR, you might, maybe, don't know for certain how PSSR will work with Red Engine. We can't say for certain, but you have the opportunity to get a better visual image with the same level of performance with 60 frames per second and maybe some ray tracing. Definitely not RT overdrive, because I don't think people understand how demanding path tracing is. But you definitely would have had some improvements, and I would have, if you spent $700 on a console for the games, the best looking games that are out there, you want to be able to see them look even better and see the differences between that and the regular PS5. If anything, what would probably just happen, the differences that you may get with Cyberpunk is those moments where you're in Night City and the frame rate does drop on the PS5. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't drop a lot, but when it does do that, it may not drop on the PS5 Pro because it's got a little bit more of the overhead to make it happen. True. And so, I mean, that's the glass half full kind of look at it. It just kind of sucks that's where we're at. It sucks for everybody because, I mean, on PC, I would love an official patch fixing the issues that they had instead of having to rely on modders. I'm fine with modders. I'm not. They're not as reliable as the developer working on it, in my experience. And so, although I am now kind of looking more towards the modders for the game, because the mod scene's pretty good for Cyberpunk. And there's some great stuff there. Like, people have created clothes that look awesome. Improvements to the oh my gosh, the character creator.
I really like your ranged melee build with this bow. That's
sweet. I'm telling you,
that looks so sweet. That's sweet. And I like the whole dynamic of you're mostly a melee build, but you can go from range.
Yeah.
On certain bosses. And this looked like it is running better. It's running way better.
Yeah, it's not doing the slow motion effect. But yeah, this is my rogue build. I think I did this footage maybe 3-4 days ago. I'm a bit stronger now than I was when I did this part, but it's it's ridiculous how much damage I do. And they play so differently than the mage, which is
Yeah.
what I really like about it, is that it's the gameplay is the foundation of it's still the same, but the gameplay is still just different. And once you got a real good build, then you're golden, man.
Yeah. But go ahead, finish what you were saying.
Oh no, just that CPR is not going back to Cyberpunk. So PC guys can kind of look towards the mod scene to kind of help them with problems, but they're not going to get that on consoles, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it too. But let's not hamper on that. Let's get out of these rapid fire and let's go to the first topic. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, no DLC. They came out and basically said this due to the fact that they want to get the third part of Final Fantasy are out as fast as possible. I'll go first. I have no real big problem with this because I feel like the third DLC or the third game is going to probably have the biggest DLC in it possible. And they're probably going to save a lot of that stuff for that one just so they could get it out the door. Because as of right now, Final Fantasy VII Remake came out during the pandemic, so 2020.
Mm-hmm.
We're in 2024 right now, and Rebirth came out. So that was a 3-year window. So if they're trying to get it out faster, I'm thinking we're going to get it in 2 years instead of 3 like this last one was. So that means we're going to get, instead of 3, meaning we'll get it in 2025. Actually, we could probably get it next year, late next year, early 2020, 2026 at the earliest.
For the part 3?
For part 3.
I think the quickest they may get that out is like in 3 years of development.
Well, that's the same amount of time it took for the first one.
Right, but Rebirth launched this year.
Oh yeah, duh. I thought Rebirth was this year. Yeah, you're right. I'm thinking it was last year.
I'm thinking the earliest is 2027, which is probably like at the launch of the PS6.
Yeah. You're right about that. So, but what do you think about the overall thought of no DLC? Is that good with you? Because
I'm fine.
Same thing. I'm fine with it too, just for the simple fact that hey, if you could get part 3 out the door as fast as possible, that's the one that you're probably going to have a bigger story arc in when it comes to like the overall DLC offerings. There will probably be DLC in that one too. And I want this to come to completion so I can see if every Xbox out there in the world actually finally
this is going to be the critical one. This could be some Mass Effect 3 levels kind of disappointment potentially if they don't nail the ending of it. Yeah. But that's part of the reason why I the way they left things off with that ending for Rebirth, they really need to kind of like get it out here as quickly as possible. Because I think the more time, I mean, clearly you can't rush development, but the people wasn't really all feeling that ending like that to begin with how vague it was, with like what exactly is going on here. And there's a lot of different interpretations. And it seems as if Square intended that on purpose for it to be interpretations out there of what is really going on. And a lot of people tend to think they know for certain. And I don't think we really know exactly where they're going with it. But
right.
I would, if not having a DLC means we get the final part a year earlier, great. Don't do the DLC. Yeah. I want to get to the final part. It also kind of tells me, and I said this on Twitter, that it tells me that the question I had on whether they would upgrade to Unreal Engine 5 for the final part, considering the performance of it on Unreal Engine 4. And I think we got the answer to that, is that they're trying to get this out as quickly as possible. If they try to upgrade to Unreal Engine 5 with no experience with it, really, that's going to slow down development. And so they're not going to do that. They want it to, Stelos is probably right. This part 3 is going to come at the end of the PS5 lifecycle. But then they got to try to rush to get that done. And like doing a DLC and missing out on the resources of the people that would be working on the game, instead they're working on the DLC, slowing down the process of getting that game out. It would be trying to implement the new improvements of PS5 of Unreal Engine 5 with Lumen and Nanite, with the various different things that Epic has improved with the engine, it would make the game look better potentially. And would it make it perform better? Who knows? With the way Unreal Engine 5 has been, but I don't think that is a better risk at this point. They know Unreal Engine 4 well enough. I think the PS5 Pro will likely be able to handle, clearly after what we saw with the improvements of it with Rebirth, be able to handle this final chapter to the trilogy a lot better than the PS5 did. And I wish it would be on PC day and date, but that's clearly a contractual thing that they got with Sony going on, and that's not going to happen. So it is what it is. Like I said, I'm fine with it. Just get the game out. Let's get it over with.
Get this 3-part series out. All right, cool. Next topic. Alan Wake 2 sells 1.8 million units, and we are also getting a version of Control 1 Ultimate Edition is coming to Mac next year. So
shout out to those 12 Mac users. You guys are getting all the games now. There's another game that was coming to Mac as well.
I forget what the name of the game was. We talked about it last week. It's coming to Mac.
Yeah, everything's coming to Mac now. Good for them.
So you can't. So you don't have a fondness for Alan Wake.
Nah, I'm not.
Enjoy part 2. So, but what do you think about the 1.8 million? I think that's a pretty solid number for that game.
I think that's about par of the course for Remedy. Remedy's games don't really sell like that, but they're great art, and I appreciate the fact that they don't seem to be deterred by the fact that their games aren't big sellers, and they don't change their game design to chase the sales. So I appreciate that about them. And this is I think this probably sold better than Control did. I don't think they ever really announced how much Control sold, or at least up to this point, I think it sold better than Control, which I think Control is a bit more action oriented and with the abilities and powers, and that kind of works better with appealing to the broader audience more than Alan Wake does. All that said, it's good for them that it's selling pretty well, to the point where they've sold that many copies of it. I think the more interesting thing is what they said about Control 2.
What did they say?
They said Control 2 is going to be an action RPG.
Yes, they did.
And so here's another thing that I appreciate about Remedy is that they're willing to take risk. And they will kind of, like, if you know the difference between Alan Wake and Alan Wake 2, is that Alan Wake 2 is more like closer to what you would get from, say, a Resident Evil kind of game than what Alan Wake 1 was. And they're not afraid to take risk, like I said before. And if you played the first Control, it's more action adventure, like narrative-based action adventure. But if you're gonna go action RPG, I kind of want to know what an action RPG looks like for Remedy. Like I want to see what that looks like, and I'm interested in that, because I don't care for Alan Wake, but I did like Quantum Break and I did like Control.
I love Quantum Break.
Yeah, and I don't think, we talked about this a few weeks ago as well. What's it called? Whatever the Control spinoff with the multiplayer. We talked about that. I'm not a fan of how that looked. But again, this is Remedy taking risks, trying different things. They worked with Crossfire X. That was abysmal. They're not a guaranteed hit every single time. But I do appreciate the fact that they're willing to give things a shot and try something new, even if it doesn't work out, it's still I think it still makes them a better developer in the end because they learn from those experiences.
No, I agree with that. I've never really been that big of an Alan Wake fan. I don't know why I never really got into him. Like, I think the only one I actually played a little bit of was American Nightmare, which was the DLC. But I just never really got into him. But Remedy is one of my favorite developers. I love, like you said, I loved Quantum Break. Like that, I love that game. I played it on Xbox. I played it on PC. I recently played it on PC again when I was just testing out my 4090 with just all the particle effects and everything, and it's
a really
cool.
unoptimized game on PC. So that's actually a really good game because if your PC runs it well, that means your PC is really good. Because they did not optimize that very well on PC.
No, they did not, and they never went back. And I mean, because it really didn't sell well on PC. So I mean, and that kind of irritates me a little bit. Like, if there's a lot of if people clamor for it enough, they'll go out and fix it. But the fact that game really doesn't have like an audience on PC, Remedy just let that thing just be where it is because nobody's really playing it, so nobody's really complaining about it. So
and that's actually another thing I appreciate about them is that they push the envelope on a visual sense. Like they were the very first developers to really push for ray tracing. Like one of the first games that really were showcasing ray tracing on PC, which was the first time you really kind of saw ray tracing, was Remedy with Control. And those RTX 2000 series cards did not handle it well, clearly, right?
No. Version 1 never really does either.
Right. But I appreciate the fact that they went there, and they typically do that pretty often. So it's whatever they do, I think Control 2 is going to look fantastic. That what's that game mentioned? Northlight, I think.
Northlight, yeah.
Yeah, they're whatever new advancements they're going to be doing with Northlight, we're going to see in that game engine.
Yeah. Definitely agree with that. All right. Big one of the first of actually the last three are all really big ones. But PlayStation is rumored. You got to say rumor because you don't want people thinking that it's real and that you're saying like, hey man, this is going to happen for real. PlayStation is in discussions, rumored to be in discussions with the parent company of FromSoftware, which is the creator of Demon's Souls, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, all the popular Souls games that everybody likes out there, Sekiro, all those games. So this came out, I believe, yesterday or the day before yesterday. Yeah, actually, it was early yesterday. And the internet was on fire with people saying this is a great move. A lot of other people saying this is, I don't really want to see this. People were saying if Sony makes the Souls games exclusive, a lot of the FromSoftware people will revolt and they'll quit playing the games and stuff like that. So there's just been a lot of conversation, noise, just conspiracies out there about what would happen with this franchise or with this developer or just this company if this was to go through. What was your whole take from just the bombardment of news around FromSoft being somebody that could possibly be a publisher or basically a developer underneath the Sony PlayStation banner now?
So I generally don't mind acquisitions. Like a lot of people, my stance on this has been pretty consistent because a lot of people look at acquisitions as if consolidation is the worst thing ever, and it's going to be the end of the industry, so to speak. And I'm like, I've always looked at it as like organically the industry will adjust if a bad platform holder buys a publisher or a developer and they ruin that publisher or developer, the talent that made that publisher or developer who they are will go elsewhere and make their own studios and make their and they will continue the quality that you enjoyed from that particular developer or publisher somewhere else. It's the way the industry works. There are like the titans of publishing in the 80s and 90s are not the titans in video game publishing today. Not even the ones that like say like in the 2000s are still like really everything that they are today. No one knew who Larian Studios was 10 years ago, but they know who they are now. And it's fluid like that. Atlas is like the new Square Enix now, with how, you know, people have gravitated towards their RPGs. Metaphor ReFantazio is really getting all the accolades that it really deserves. I say all this because things will change. And just because, let's say this does happen. Let's say FromSoftware is acquired, Kalakawa, which is their parent company, is acquired by Sony. And from what is appeared to have been going on is that there was a Korean company that was trying to do a hostile takeover of Kalakawa. And so they actually went to Sony to try to, you know, hopefully drive the price up to stave off a hostile takeover.
Right.
If that is the case, that might end up where they could have been just using Sony and their good relationship with Sony, considering Sony owns a portion of the company and a portion of Kalakawa, where they could have been just trying to stay independent, but just find a way to prevent themselves from being acquired. Or if it really does turn out that Sony does buy them, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, what does that mean? I don't think Sony would change how that publisher operates. And it's not just FromSoftware. I think I forgot the name of the other studios but I think some of them make mobile games and some of them make other kind of RPGs as well. And so I don't think Sony would really like change how they operate. I think what they would do though is make FromSoftware's games exclusive to PlayStation and PC. And I know there's some people that think that they might make it timed exclusive on PC, but they've made it clear that games with multiplayer are day and date, and the majority of FromSoftware's games have multiplayer. I know Sekiro didn't, but the Dark Souls games do, with invasions and co-op. Demon Souls does. Elden Ring does. So if they come out with an Elden Ring 2, I think the only way that it potentially would be a timed exclusive is if they looked at the fact that none of FromSoftware's games have crossplay, and therefore, without crossplay, there's just, you know, you're not being able to generate the additional numbers by having a shared pool, where everyone's being able to make sure that they get, you know, someone to co-op with, because there's an additional platform that they are potentially drawing from to get players in. Who knows? But I'm fairly certain they would not put any of their games on Xbox going forward. And I know there are some people that disagree with that, but I'm waiting to find some kind of evidence that would justify their optimism that Sony wouldn't do that. Let's look at the facts here. Stellar Blade was developed by Shift Up. The game was originally supposed to be a multi-platform game. It was supposed to come to the Xbox. Shift Up ran into financial issues trying to develop a game. Sony swooped in, paid for the rest of the development, made them a second-party developer. Now, Stellar Blade only released on PS5. It's coming to PC next year, but Shift Up never said, even though their game was originally supposed to go to the Xbox, Shift Up never said it's coming to Xbox next year as well. Because it's not going to the Xbox. This is how they roll. During the FTC hearings, Microsoft exposed how Sony was engaging and look, it's all fair in game, it's business, but engaging using the leverage of their bigger platform, significantly bigger platform, to leverage third-party developers into making time exclusive deals that did not cost Sony a ton of money to make in order to keep games at launch off of Xbox.
Right.
They exposed that. So what has Sony been doing so far? After that, they haven't been doing too many more of those contracts. But this is what they have been doing. They've been offering development help for these developers to get their games ready and optimized. And in doing so, allegedly, I'll say allegedly, because this is all, not it's not set in stone. It's not like anything that these developers have admitted to, or Sony, nor would they ever. But they have been giving them this help with some kind of deal, at least allegedly by Xbox, for time exclusive access to PlayStation only, which is something that it appears to have happened with Black Myth Wukong. If Sony's really engaging in these kind of activities, why, from a studio that they now own, would they willingly put and publish those games on Xbox? And if you bring up MLB The Show, again, what has to be acknowledged is that Sony does not publish MLB The Show on Xbox. MLB publishes it on Xbox. And Sony had no choice but to continue to make the game, even though it was going to show up on Xbox. Here are your options here. MLB's going to pull the license, and you're probably going to have to shut down Sony San Diego if they're not making the game. You have a studio that their entire existence is about making a baseball game. What are you going to do, turn them into a support studio and have them support Naughty Dog now? You're probably going to just shut the studio down if you're not making MLB. So your option is to either shut the studio down or continue making the game and make a little bit more money because it's going to be on Xbox.
Right.
They had no choice there. It's not what they would prefer, but they went and did it anyway. Death Stranding is not being published on Xbox by PlayStation. It's being published by 505 Games, which has been publishing Death Stranding ever since it showed up on PC. Every time a Sony exclusive game goes to PC, previously, like this happened with Detroit Become Human, with the Quantic Dream games, 505 Games is typically the publisher that's doing that publishing. It's not PlayStation. PlayStation does not publish games on Xbox. They'll publish a game on Nintendo, though. But they won't do it on Xbox. And that's not going to change going forward. If the Nintendo Switch could handle Elden Ring, maybe they'll put it on there. But Xbox, maybe. No. They won't do it. And is that fair? No, it's not. But it's also business. So who cares if it's fair? But like everything that like people point to, oh, this is evidence that they're moving in this direction. No, it's not. That's not evidence of anything. There is a viable, easy explanation for these things that you just ignore because you don't want to admit the truth, which is they're never going to put their games on Xbox. And so if they do acquire FromSoftware, those games don't go to Xbox no more. If you want them, go buy a PlayStation. That's how they view value. And if you want to, for the last one, you want to bring up Bungie, sure, let's do Bungie. We don't really know if Marathon is or is not going to Xbox. Think about it for a second. When Bungie got acquired by Sony, they put a clause in their acquisition, in the signing of it, that they, as a studio, will remain multi-platform. And Sony agreed to that. Now, the people who made that deal don't work at Bungie no more. And the board of directors at Bungie is now Sony. Are they beholden to those rules? As I said with Stellar Blade, game initially announced as multi-platform, went into hibernation for 2 years, came back, it was exclusive to PlayStation. What have we heard about Marathon since its vague looking reveal trailer? How many years ago was that? 3 years ago?
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Nothing. So what indication do we have that everything is still on the up and up with Marathon? We'll know for certain next year. Next year, we'll know for certain what's going on because Marathon's going to come out next year. So the next time they show Marathon, we will see if it still has Xbox listed as a platform that's going to. Now, that doesn't change games that like Destiny is a game that's been out since 2017, has been on the Xbox, has had expansions. Of course, they're going to continue to keep supporting it on those platforms because it's not worth it to take the backlash that you would get by refusing to update the platform on those the game on those platforms. And plus, again, they had that clause with Bungie that they will continue to support multi-platform for Bungie. But then, well, it's not like a Gummy Bears multiplayer game, right? That they were making.
Yeah, that was the game that Codename Gummy Bear is the one that got moved over to SIE development.
So they spun that team off into its own studio, right?
Yep, under SIE.
And that game is not multi-platform, right?
We don't know yet. They didn't announce or anything on it, but it's probably a good chance that it's not, since it's being developed by Bungie developers, but it's not going to be under Bungie.
Developed by Bungie, and therefore there is no stipulation that it has to be multi-platform.
Exactly. So I think it's a good chance that game may not be exclusive. I mean, may be exclusive. Yeah.
I would say it probably is.
Yeah, it's a good chance.
So that's all I gotta say about it. Like I think they won't change how FromSoftware does games. They will leave them alone. They're a golded studio. They're a studio that you just let them be and let them work and you let them cook and do their job. But when it comes down to it, what they really care about is where the games go. And so if the acquisition does go through, then you can expect those games to just be on PlayStation and PC. Also, I'm leaning towards it not happening, and here's why. I'm leaning towards it not happening because typically when we hear about a lot of the big acquisitions, we didn't know anything about it before it happened.
Yeah, before it happened, right?
Yeah. And typically when we hear about rumors, and it's widely known that a publisher is about to, or a big developer is about to get acquired by another company, it usually falls apart. And usually the reason why it even made public because one company wanted to drive the price up, or they saw it was going sideways, and then they tried to bring other suitors in to potentially, now that it's public, oh, wait a minute, they're even, is even a possibility to acquire them. We got money. Let's see what's up. Maybe Tencent will put their hat in the ring on that. That typically happens when things aren't working out. And so if that is the case, then, that will kind of be part of the course of how these things turn out. There was something else I was going to say, and I think it has eluded me. Yeah, I think that's about it, really, honestly. Like, the other aspect, anime. So,
oh yeah,
that might get regulators, not necessarily in Japan, but regulators like the EU or the CMA or the FTC involved, where they may say Sony owns too much of this industry to allow this acquisition to be completed as is. That doesn't mean that like it would guarantee that it wouldn't go through and that Sony wouldn't own Kadokawa, but they may need to divest some of that company to someone else, or divest some of what they already own in distribution. So Sony owns a lot of the distribution for anime. Like they own Crunchyroll, they own Funimation, but they rolled Funimation into Crunchyroll. Basically, now you do have your Netflixes and your Hulus that will, show anime, but I don't know the numbers. I'm not the biggest anime fan. I like some of it. I'll watch some of it, but I don't watch as much as like other people do. I'm not an anime lover like other people, but I watch enough to know I can watch stuff through other avenues without Sony. But that Sony has a lot of the dedicated anime-centric platforms under lock, and that might be problematic for regulators. Maybe they may say, well, Netflix is enough, or you need to put a lot more of the content that you're getting on Netflix, or stop doing so many deals where it's exclusive to Crunchyroll, a particular popular anime or whatever, right? Maybe they've already done that. I don't know. Again, I'm kind of not super familiar with that. But the fact that they do own so much of the distribution, and what Kadokawa owns is kind of like the anime houses that create the stuff. And so if that is, I can see a regulator saying, we don't like you being creator and distributor of this to the degree that you are. And they may say, this deal's not going through until you divest either what Kadokawa has when it comes to creating it, or you divest some of what you own in distributing it. And I think probably the easier route would be to sell what Kadokawa's anime creation stuff is in order to kind of make that work. But you just never know. And because that's essentially what Microsoft needed to do with cloud gaming in order to make sure ABK went through. They had to divest their cloud gaming rights to Ubisoft in order to get the CWA to get off their back for that. So...
No, yeah.
Gregor in the chat says Netflix owns their own anime studios. Oh, I did not know that. And being the biggest streaming app makes it like a Microsoft being in third place situation, like with Activision. But that might actually, now that I didn't know that they were making their own animes. I just thought they were just making deals, like the way they would make deals for movies. Like they don't own the studios that a lot of the movies that you see that are like Netflix movies, they don't own those production companies, or they don't, like, they just kind of just bought the rights of the movie from them. And sometimes they buy them from Hollywood studios as well. If Hollywood studio doesn't think that the movie is capable of doing big in the box office. But I thought that's how that worked. I didn't realize they owned their own anime studios now. So maybe that might be enough where regulators may say Netflix just needs to be better. And this isn't that big a deal, but we'll see. Go ahead, man. I cut you off.
No, you're good. No, I think we knew. I mean, it's been so many rumors about what PlayStation should do when it comes to who to purchase next. They have to purchase a publisher or something like that. For the longest, everybody thought it was Square, and that still could be the case. Square is definitely somebody that they have a good relationship with, but with the new direction that Square is going in, basically saying that they won't really, outside of probably Final Fantasy R3, every Final Fantasy game that they make going forward is going to be on on every platform and stuff. So that's straight from the horse's mouth. But that doesn't change the fact that they can still be right for acquisition. I think this is a really good move because if you think about just the lineage and just the support and just the familiarity they have with PlayStation, the original Demon Souls, one of the, was exclusive to PlayStation 3. And then, all the other games came to either like PlayStation first, it came to other places second. You see the remake of Demon Souls is only on PlayStation 5. It's nowhere else. They did do a lot of third-party stuff like Sekiro, Elden Ring, Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3. That's when they kind of started their lineage and going third party with a lot of stuff. But they still have a familiar relationship with PlayStation. So it would make sense for this to actually happen because, you know, we talk about the organic growth and the organic or you know acquisitions that PlayStation could be making. This would probably be one of the more authentic ones that they can do. So I think it's a great move for them. As long as we still get the games on PC day and date when it comes to the FromSoftware games. If they don't come to Xbox, that's fine because guess what? Xbox did that for a lot of their games initially, and then, you know, turned the hands of time back later on and made them so they could go everywhere. So I think all these situations are very fluid and it's always a dynamic purpose to them. And we'll see exactly what happens if something like this did happen. But like you said, I don't know if it will because normally you find out about this after it's already being announced by one of them saying that we're in the
Sony acquiring Bungie. There was no leak. The only leak that came out was that it was potential that Microsoft would acquire Bungie. And look, and
you saw when Pete Parsons came out and said,
yeah, it fell through. So don't think about that. It leans back to what we said about how this stuff leaks out to the public. It's usually when things are about to fall through. So Microsoft and Bungie's deal fell through. Bungie likely were the ones that leaked it out there to try to get some more interest out there because the deal with Microsoft wasn't going to happen. Then they started talking to Sony, and then things broke down from what, you know, was said unofficially, but then, you know, things got reignited again, and then it happened. But at no point did any games media sources have the info that Sony was negotiating with Bungie. It was the same thing with Bethesda. No one said anything about Bethesda before it happened. No one said anything about ABK before it happened. And ABK had approached Meta first.
Yep.
And we never knew that they approached Meta for acquisition. We didn't know about Microsoft until moments before the deal was coming out, and it wasn't even a games media source that talked about it. It was one of those, like it was like a pure business media source that talked about it, like I can't remember who it was. It was basically it wasn't any games media people that knew anything. So they typically don't get this kind of information unless things have gone bad. Right. As far as the negotiations go. And what Kadokawa has admitted is that Sony sent them a letter of intent. And what a letter of intent means is that we've made an offer. We've done some negotiations with you. We have an offer on the table for what we would like to acquire you for. And, you know, we if you accept, then we go through the process with our lawyers and your lawyers, where we will determine that everything that you said about what you owned and your debts and your assets to be completely truthful. The lawyers will handle all that. And if everything's on the up and up, then, you know, we can go ahead and close and we're good to go. And unless the regulators come in and then regulators want to say, hey, we don't like XYZ, then, you know, that's what we saw happen with ABK. And since that letter of intent is out there, now that we know about it, it may just be they didn't like the offer they got.
True.
And considering that this talk that they, you know, they're trying to fight off a hostile takeover, maybe they felt like they really weren't really trying to get acquired. So the letter's just sitting out there, and it going public has driven the value of the company up. And so now this Korean company that's trying to do a hostile takeover needs to pay more money in order to make it happen.
Right.
So.
Lot of moving parts to this. Lot of moving parts. Yeah, we'll see. Keep our eyes on it, and trust me, if it does happen, it's going to be a lot of people's like PlayStation keeps games away, Xbox gives them to everybody, and I'm just waiting for that. Let's wait for that.
I mean, but look, I mean that is what it is. Like
that is the truth, though. That's
Horizon Lego launched on PC,
everything but Xbox,
a Switch,
right?
A PlayStation,
and they'll probably have a next gen version of that game when it comes out next year for the new Switch.
Mm-hmm. But no Xbox.
But
Curious.
no Xbox. Yeah, no
but
Xbox.
People tend to think that you're getting held out for sue. No, you're not.
Yeah.
if they get FromSoftware, Elden Ring 2 ain't going to Xbox.
Ooh, that's devastating.
Yeah. Because that would be like that's like almost that's like a step below a GTA 6 coming out. You know?
At this point, how big that game is. And only thing bigger is I say only thing bigger release wise is something like Zelda for Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like in that vein. You know what I just realized? Rodimus isn't here because I haven't seen him coming back at you about some of your takes.
He clearly not here because if he was, he definitely been like doom and gloom. Yeah. But I wonder why you guys aren't talking about this. Shout out to Rodimus.
Shout out to Rodimus, man. We miss you, bro. Hopefully you catch this on the replay. You will. I know you will. Avowed previews were released today. I was actually in Discord talking to Attic about his when he was making the video for it for the preview, and a lot of mixed emotions, but opinions out there on it, but mostly positive from most of the videos I watched, a lot of the articles I read. Just looking at some of the gameplay, I was like, this looks a lot better. I could definitely see that this is a game that people are playing on PC because that frame rate looks impeccable. I was like, that's a good 60 frames per second right there. With that being said, did you get a chance to look any other previews or just see any other gameplay that people put out today about Avowed that comes out in February?
I did watch a few previews. One in particular, I actually had to give the content creator a sub. Apparently, they flew some people out again. They did the same thing for Redfall. This one turns out to have turned out a little bit better than the Redfall situation did. But they flew some people out. Some people we know in this community as well. Shout out to them for getting the opportunity. And one in particular, I actually saw a few previews. A shout out to Press Start Kofi. He got flued out, and his preview was pretty good. I liked his thoughts on it. There was this one particular preview though that was like a good 50 minutes long. I shared it on Blue Sky because I thought that was very well done.
That's a deep dive.
Yes. Yeah, it was a preview that got into really deep into it, and so I like what I see. They definitely put some time in on the third person perspective. Mm-hmm. I will be playing the game exclusively in third person, or at least attempt to. Although I did get into some interesting conversations with a few people about level design. And this is one of those situations where I wish Die was still available to come through, because being a level designer himself, he could be able to provide even further insight on some of these things, because they're essentially what it comes down to is that when it comes to designing a level and you're creating the map that players would navigate through, the perspective that players are viewing things through is very important. And being able to see secrets, or how you design it so that it's easily being able to determine where something may be, or if you have, like, for example, a puzzle that you need to complete in order to progress through that particular area. You need to be able to see everything properly, and it's a way to design it that is different for first person perspective that may not be as easily, like, as readily visible with third person. And so you need to be able to kind of, like, it's not just, hey, we designed this game with first person perspective in mind, and then we decide we were going to allow people to choose between first and third person. And so now that we have this always on perspective of third person, we didn't need to change anything else. It's almost to the degree of, like, if you allow flying in your game and you allow verticality with, like, say, Spider-Man with web swinging, you need to kind of design the map to make it so that, like, it makes sense that you're swinging from rooftop to rooftop in New York, or you're flying, through a particular landscape, or like an Anthem. It doesn't make sense to kind of make everything grounded for a character or player that can fly. Likewise, with different perspectives, if you're allowing third person perspective, something may not be as easily visible as it would be in first person. So you just got to kind of figure that out. And maybe that's why Machine Games chose first person with Indiana Jones. Maybe they just did not have the on staff, and they're not familiar with creating levels that would require a third person perspective. Maybe that really is what informed them to make the choices they made with Indiana Jones. You don't know. Brian, he says audio. Did the audio cut out?
Did it?
I don't know. Like, he's saying audio.
Moving for me. Maybe it was a hiccup or something.
Okay. No, but see,
can you hear us? Can you still hear us?
He said it did for me for a minute. So I don't know. It may have been something on Brian's side of things.
Okay.
Gregor says it was silent for a minute. So I don't know what happened on your stream, Forte.
So I don't know. Yeah, I wasn't even touching my PC, so I don't know what the heck happened.
Okay. So what was I talking? Yeah, just level design is important with first and third person perspectives, and so that is something that they have to take into account. Maybe with Indiana Jones, the reason why the kind of people that they have on staff and how they develop levels, that informed them on what to do when it came to making Indiana Jones first person perspective. If that is the case, that's somewhat of a disappointment to me, because I kind of feel like if some games, certain kind of games, I believe should have a particular perspective, and I think anything RPG related should be third person. At least this is the way I prefer it, or at least have a choice.
Outer Worlds was what, third person?
It was both. You could choose both. Now the animations for third person weren't great, and that is kind of like what it really comes down to. Not really comes down to, but like I think that's the thing that people most see when it comes to third person perspective. When you do both, one suffers, and the one that usually suffers is the one that the studio is least familiar with. And so a lot of times, if there's a lot of work that goes into that, motion matching, mocap, in order to make running animations look authentic and look like a real human running or look real. You know how like if you decide to go jogging, you don't just go from standing still to a full-on sprint in like a millisecond, right? There's like a gathering up and then a gathering down when you slow down. There's a way that your body like gathers the momentum to start running. And there's a way to do that where it looks natural. There's a way how when you run and you say you turn a corner, you'll lean when you run. As you lean into that corner to turn that corner, that's called motion matching. And when they do that, like, I mean, there's plugins on Unreal Engine to do it, and they cost almost nothing. Where it looks good, and people have created this already. But like, there's a way to do that in third person that makes it look natural when you open the door. When bad motion matching is like in the Medium that Bloober Team made, when the main character would open the door, if you were too close to the door, she would slide, her legs wouldn't even move. She would slide back to the appropriate distance of where the only animation they had for opening a door was, and then she would open the door. That's very like old school and kind of not acceptable today. Today, if you're going to open the door, depending on where you're, how close to the door you are, we'll kind of determine how you do that. Like, for example, on the Jumbotron, we're showing Veilguard. When I open the chest, if I'm directly in front of the chest, there's an animation for that. If I am to the side of the chest, or I'm hit the button to open the chest, but I'm not facing the chest, Rook would do a different animation of kicking the chest open. It's like they took into account that you may not be facing the exact direction of the chest, and it breaks immersion to not have it look natural when you open it. These are all the things you have to take into account when you do third person perspective that you don't need to care about at all when it's first person. And what I've mentioned this before with Cyberpunk, originally the game was supposed to be third person. And I think they switched to first person because they didn't really have the time. It was going to be easier. Not easier, but quicker. And so they didn't do third person, but then on PC, modders were allowing you third person perspective. And the very first mods that allowed it looked terrible because they didn't have any running animations in the game for V, the main character, and Cyberpunk running around. So that had to be added in Red Engine, which is something that wasn't already put in there, and there's no plugin like Unreal Engine to allow that to happen. It took a while for developers to make it look natural. If you've seen any footage of it, it looked terrible because they had this kind of like thing where you'd be running through Night City and, it's a crowded city. And so you would lean up against, like, they had a way of developing the animation where you would kind of like brush past people and you would never see how it really looks because it's first person perspective. So for you, it just looked like you were kind of brushing past somebody. But the actual look of it in third person perspective, V's whole torso was magnetically leaning into the NPCs around V. It looked terrible. It looked like Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four, body just like Play-Doh moving all over the place, and it looked bad. And so when you don't have any kind of inkling of you doing third person perspective, you don't develop animations and tools and all kinds of other things that are required for that. That is a lot of work that had to be put in, and Avowed and Obsidian did that. So it looks good. It doesn't look great. It looks good. I think some of the previews I saw, and again, these people only had 10 hours, so that it's not like they had a ton of time with it. But some of the previews I saw, talked about how the companion you had was kind of useless. Like, dude was dying left and right. You had to keep picking him up. He wasn't very useful in combat. You know, that might be for various different reasons. It could be the build that they had with him wasn't great. It could be, you know, some things need to be tweaked. Who knows? I think they said that the dual wielding combat was a little too OP. They needed to make some adjustments with that. I think it looks good, but it could be. I think the delay was good for them to kind of help try to optimize this thing, or polish it so that, like, at launch, it's actually going to deliver on what the intended experience is supposed to be. I saw the comments they made about the frame rate, Forte, and I will say those comments real quick. This is from Carrie Patel. She said, I want to clarify 30 frames per second on Xbox Series X is not our target. We will hit that at the very least. We are fully into performance optimization. We want to fully deliver a beautiful world at the best frame rate we possibly can. We're working on that right now. Let me translate that for y'all. You want 60 FPS, you play this on PC. That's what that's saying. If you want 60 frames per second, you should play this on PC. Because what she's saying right now, what she said 30 FPS is the minimum, is going to be that at the very least. What she didn't say is that we're definitely getting you 60 FPS.
She didn't say the platform when she did it. She just left it ambiguous.
Right. So the visual mode will be a locked 30 frames per second. Performance mode, there will be a performance mode, and it's going to be one of those iffy performance modes where it's kind of 40. You know, maybe they should allow VRR on, so that's something they should be working on. Make sure VRR is enabled. So if you have a display, a TV that can do VRR, they need to have a 40 FPS VRR mode to kind of, you know, smooth that out and it feel like a smooth experience, even though you're not getting 60 and it's not as good as 60. But I do not think you're going to get 60 frames per second in this game on Xbox Series X. It will be a very yo-yo FPS, kind of between 45 to 55 FPS, sometimes at 60, but in really demanding scenes dropping down into the 40s. They're trying to find ways to lower certain assets here and there to not make it so demanding, so that on performance mode it works. And maybe eventually they'll be able to get to a lock 60, but visually it's not going to be as eye popping as the quality mode. But like I said, let's be for real here. If they could do 60 FPS. And it's November. And this game comes out in February. And they still not telling you it's going to do 60 FPS. And look, you want 60 FPS? PC is where it's going to be at.
But everything's an Xbox SloMo, you know. You can,
right.
You can play 60 frames per second anywhere.
Right.
Except an Xbox.
And this is on the Unreal Engine 4 game?
4 game, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which that surprised me because, like, shout out again to Kofi. He talked about how he said visually the game looked good and it looked really good in a lot of places, but not like great. But then something that he noticed, something that I didn't notice any other public like previews that I saw talking about, is that he said there wasn't a lot of, like, the environment was very static. Like, he didn't see like trees moving.
Yeah, I didn't
in the wind.
Either.
And or, you know, like grass moving or anything like that. And it's just not necessarily dead, but it's like a pretty still picture. And so that can kind of break immersion a little bit. Like, you see some stuff like, you know, what certain games look great. If I recall correctly, like with Red Dead 2 that came out in 2018 or 2019. 2019.
2018.
You're right, because it was up against God of War. 2018.
It got shafted at the end.
That game visually looked great, but I think in some ways, like on PC, you can see some of that dynamic kind of, the world looks more alive than it does on console, and that's
A little more oomph.
yeah, it's going to happen because it's it was an Xbox One X that it was 4K 30 on, so it's just. It is what it is, but I just think there's little things like that you're going to have to just deal with because Obsidian is a growing studio, but their games will take time and kind of like getting to the point where you're starting to see them really hit like those really dynamic kind of looking visual experiences.
Yeah, the previews, like I said, when I saw the gameplay, I was like, damn, that's, definitely can see that 60 frames per second. I said they must have gave y'all PC codes because they ain't getting it to you on console. But yeah, but I was very impressed with the overall fidelity of the game. Like, do I want it to look better? Everybody wants it to look as good as it could possibly look, but I feel like it's a step up from what we saw in the original trailers. The gameplay looks a lot more fluid, especially
True.
since like just walking and running around the environments and stuff look really, really cool. The one thing that I didn't like was the scale of like the handheld, the weapon you were handing, or it was like it seemed like it was small compared to like how much bigger it should be. I don't know if that's just a perception thing. I don't know what the FOV on these characters um distance was, but that could have something to do with it. But that was one thing I noticed. Like, dang, that these hammers and these maw fists, they're like really small. But I also like the fact when you watch them in combat felt like it had weight behind it. And I'm a huge with weight in combat. Like, if I don't feel like
that was actually brought up in the previews that some of the feedback from the initial gameplay showings was that it didn't feel like and I agree with it, that the attacks you were doing on enemies was really like, it didn't look like it was really affecting them,
Yeah. That's the. I mean, I akin it to like when you was watching Hulk in Marvel's Avengers. Is like, I like he should be like. I know he's not going to be able to like knock people across the screen. It's because it's a game, but at least these hits should feel like he's hitting something.
Right.
And when I was watching people I was watching like Addicts gameplay using a MOSFET, the gunshots it's like it felt, I like, ooh, that hurt. Like headshots, you just see the animal or whatever creature or whatever person they shot just go back and stop in their tracks. When you were hitting them with like the mace or the any melee weapons, that was really cool. So I like that. Fire effects, the spell effects and stuff. I really like the fire effect. The fire effect looked really, really good in the game. And then they had like whatever the green mist one was, and just the death animations, like where they either burn to death or they dissolve to death from like corrosion and something like that. I think that was all very, very well done. I too will play this game predominantly in third person, or at least, like you said, try to do it in third person. I saw previews of people going to like the top of lighthouses and stuff and like looking around. And now that you think about it, I can see what Kofi was talking about, where he said the world just didn't feel like alive, because now that I think about it, I didn't see wind anywhere in those videos, like trees moving or anything. Now, that was a very, very great observation by him, because I don't even think a lot of people probably was even looking for it, something like that. But that's also, like you said, that's part of the immersion of the game. When you're talking about an RPG of this scale and scope where you could basically see it, you could go there, it would be nice to see like blades of grass move across the ground and stuff. And I think that's something that Gorilla does very, very well when it comes to their engine. And if you look at like Horizon, it's like just looking at just standing still, you feel like you're in a calm, brisk wind, and you could tell by the way and the direction of the of the foliage moving and stuff like that. It just feels like the world itself is a little bit more alive. And I think that's the thing that, being a person that played games like those, you kind of notice them when you're in an open world environment like that. So hopefully, just because this is, like you said, a preview or early beta patch, that's something that will get implemented into the game later. Because I do think it's kind of like a miss if you don't have some type of like environmental effect, like wind and air, and like watching people jump in the water just looked all bland. And and this is a company that they have the opportunity to reach out to some of the best people to develop water and Sea of Thieves. So that they always talk about how their developers are cross-sharing technologies and stuff like that. It's just little things like that that I think can be a little bit better, especially if you have the people around you that know that they can make it better. So, but overall, I thought the previews were great. I think it was a good snapshot of where this game is in the middle of November. They still have roughly 3 months to, finish up what's going on with this game. And the fact that I'm actually happy that they were actually willing to show this, because this is something we didn't get with Redfall. We didn't get with Starfield. We didn't get with Indiana Jones, because that's coming out very soon. And this game is, further out than any of it. And we're getting a 3-month early look into what the actual game is. And I think that does show a little bit of confidence for where they think the game is and also in its city in themselves. So I am very pleased with what they show, but the next time we see the game, I definitely want to see some improvements in some of the things you mentioned.
Yeah.
All right, last topic. So how far do we want to go into the Video Game Awards? We can go real far, or do we want to just talk about the main thing? Why the heck is DLC available inside of Game of the Year category?
Let's just talk about
you tell me how you want to tackle this.
Let's just rip that Band-Aid off and talk about the main thing.
Okay, let's talk about the main. Okay, so for anybody who doesn't know, the Video Game Awards, I believe, hosted by Jeff Keighley. It is next month, I believe. Is it December 12th? Or December? It's early.
I believe it's December 12th, yeah.
Yeah, December 12th. And over the course of this week, earlier this week, a lot of people noticed that there was some addendums added to the Game of the Year FAQ, where they went in and they added some more points of interest for people to know about how the judging of these games are going to be, and what nomination it was going to be like, and what could be nominated. And the one line that they add is, and I don't have the actual line in front of me, but they actually talked about how DLC remakes and other games like that can be are eligible for nomination pretty much in any category. But they said the time, the value proposition, and sales would take part of the overall consideration of that game. It sounds like SloMo's like literally looking it up right now. I hear his keyboard clicking and
No, I was actually replying to Lionel in the chat. I didn't realize, but I got a mechanical keyboard. I didn't realize it was that loud.
I know what I never usually hear is, I just after they heard it that time. But that is basically what was said. Some people found it, and it kind of blew up all over the place. I will tell you, there has been some conspiracy theories out there. The fact that I won't say the person's name, but I talked to them and they said, you know what? This makes me feel like Sony and Jeff Keighley got something going, because you got the whole Squaresoft thing, Squaresoft, FromSoft, the biggest DLC that came out this year was Elden Ring. It's PlayStation's maybe an acquisition for them. We know Jeff Keighley loves PlayStation. He couldn't wait to tell everybody one more thing about Indiana Jones coming to the PlayStation 5. So there's a lot of stuff going on out here when it comes to Jeff Keighley. So people are like really, really diving deep into a lot of that type of stuff. But I'm gonna ask you, SloMo, like I just said with all that, DLC, and you love Elden Ring. Now I think you had a little bit more issues with this DLC versus the full game, but you still enjoyed it, and I know you liked it a lot. But what is your, you talked
I
about
didn't really have issues so much as I thought it was a bit overrated for
Well,
the way
yeah,
people were like treating it. It's very good.
yeah. But
But
what's your thoughts on just all of this?
I don't think DLC or expansion should ever be in consideration for awards like this. Anytime you have to play another game that was not released in the year of consideration, which is 2024 for this year, in order to access the content that you want to nominate, that should not be put up against fully released games. When all I have to do to play Metaphor ReFantazio is hit new game, and I'm playing the content that is in consideration for Game of the Year. That's very different than in Elden Ring. I have to do like at minimum like an hour and a half of playing of Elden Ring, and that's only if you know what you're doing as a veteran player that knows where to go, what to do, and you don't waste any time, no distractions with the great massive world that's there. You just do exactly what's necessary to get you into Erdtree. That's an hour and a half of content of a game that came out in 2022 in order to access that. You should not be eligible, period. And anything where justifications that people are coming up with, these are people who are just biased for FromSoftware. They don't care. They glaze everything they do. They glaze everything Miyazaki does. And that's just, it's the reality of the situation is what it is. The fact that it has been put in here. So let's look at like some cold hard facts here. The cold hard fact is that the FAQ was not updated where they talked about allowing expansions and DLCs in until 2 days before they revealed that Erdtree was a nominee for Game of the Year. Phantom Liberty came out last year, and people didn't like that Phantom Liberty was up for multiple awards, like Best RPG, when it's an expansion of an RPG that came out in 2020, 3 years earlier. People weren't cool with that, and they shouldn't have been. You come up with this update, basically to cover your own butt, because you already knew what the voters wanted and where they were leaning. And this is clear bias for FromSoftware. I don't know about the whole look, because I don't think Sony and Jeff Keighley were working together to do this. There's no guarantee they're even getting the own FromSoftware. So, like, I don't think that they put all this into play over a possibility of owning that studio. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that's people not quite understanding how long a lot of this stuff takes, which is fine because we not really privy to all that information.
We know how long it took Xbox to buy Activision.
Yeah, that took a long time in negotiations, and before it even went public, it took a while. And so let's really this is not a fact, but it's somewhat speculation. But Spawnwave, the content creator Spawnwave, said he spoke with people who do have voting privileges in Jeff Keighley's Video Game Awards show, and they were made aware that they could vote for expansions and DLCs last summer. When did Erdtree come out? In June. So clearly this was a topic of discussion in order for Keighley and to make it known you could vote for this for Game of the Year back then. This is the only thing that was really new was they need to inform us, and he waited until the last minute to do so.
Yeah.
The whole thing, it just kind of just shows a lack of credibility for the entire process of that award show. And which is, as many people have said, this is why you shouldn't take it seriously. And I understand people saying, I'm not going to watch. I don't care about this award show. I don't care about award shows in general. Look, I get that. That's your personal preference. But you are not everyone, and not everyone is going to care about what you care about personally. And frankly, when hundreds of millions of people watch this daggone award show, no one knows that people put more emphasis and credibility into the golden joysticks or dice award show.
Exactly.
They don't even know they exist. The freaking golden joystick award show, I think, is going on right now. How many people knew that? So this is the only award show that people know about. This is the only award show that even like casuals know about. And so I don't care about Jeff Keighley's opinion on things, but I do care about how things are viewed and what people view as acceptable. And when you just say, well, I don't care because this award show has no credibility, I don't think Jeff Keighley has the credibility, there are better award shows, I'm just going to watch them, you're ignoring the reality of the fact that this is the only award show that the vast majority of people even know exists. And this is creating a narrative where it's okay to boldly have your biases left and right and display them and treat developers who aren't one of the favorites of the games media as lesser than. There are multiple games that should feel rightly snubbed out of the Game of the Year conversation because they introduced a expansion of a game that has already won Game of the Year into the discussion. And if I was the developer that had a very good game, had very good review scores, people loved it, and people thought I was going to be in the Game of the Year conversation, yeah, I would be upset that some expansion from the pet favorite of the industry has got in yet again.
You want to know what's real funny about that, though, now that I think about it? There are going to be people out there that are going to vote for this that didn't play Elden Ring the first time through, but they got into this DLC because everybody was talking about it. And the fact that you could go to the store and buy Elden Ring with the whole game with the DLC in a package, there were people that voted that bought the game that way for the first time. And they're going to look at it as a whole experience of Elden Ring versus just basing it off the DLC by itself.
Which would have been fine if
last year,
not last year, in 2022. If this was one of those situations where you dropped a game and it was a pretty good game, but then you dropped this fantastic, amazing, artistic masterpiece of an expansion and it released in the same year, if people wanted to say, let's put that masterpiece of an expansion into the Game of the Year discussion, I still would have a problem with it. Because, I mean, it would be better than what they're doing now with a game that came out 2 years earlier and had already won Game of the Year. But the problem is that, like, you have to buy the other experience to access this experience. And at least even with last year with Phantom Liberty, you could skip all the way to the Phantom Liberty. They gave you the option to have a basic randomized standard V. Yeah, I think you could still do the character creator for the character. And matter of fact, I'm fairly certain you can because I actually tried it out a few weeks ago. And just go directly to Phantom Liberty. Like as soon as you get into Night City, you get the phone call inviting you to go to Dogtown where Phantom Liberty takes place. I do not prefer that experience for people who saw Phantom Liberty and saw, how hyped it was and said, hey, maybe I should give Cyberpunk a shot. And you got no choice. You can't, play Phantom Liberty without Cyberpunk. They buy Cyberpunk, they buy Phantom Liberty, but they're really here for Phantom Liberty. So they go and they play Phantom Liberty without playing Cyberpunk, like the base game, skipping all that stuff as CDPR allows you to. I do not prefer that experience. You're not going to enjoy it. One, you don't know what the heck's going on. You don't know who Jackie is. You don't know who Johnny Silverhand is. You don't know why V needs to get to Dogtown and why V is so desperate to get a cure. You don't know any of these things. You missed out on the first 2 quests. You missed out on the tutorial that taught you how to play the game. You didn't get the experience of getting your feet wet with builds and everything to really understand how the gameplay works, and therefore going into Phantom Liberty, they're not really holding your hand. They may show you some new things, but they're not really holding your hand on things that you should have already learned in the prologue of the game and in the first two main missions. It's not a good experience, but they allowed it regardless. But just because they allowed it doesn't make it good. And this is why you shouldn't just have expansions in this conversation in the first place, because it just doesn't fit to full-priced, full-on standalone games that released that year. And if I'm like Shift Up with Stellar Blade, or I can't think of any number of developers that may have felt like, we could have been in this conversation for Game of the Year. Yeah, I'm gonna feel some kind of way about it, because let's just keep it a buck of what this really is. And the reason why they made it so important to get Elden Ring here is that it's about raising the profile of the studio. It's about allowing these studios to get a second wind on sales. Astrobot sold 1.5 million copies. Because Astrobot is in the Game of the Year conversation, it's going to sell even more copies. That's how this works. People start talking about the games that are in the Game of the Year conversation. It's the same thing when it comes to any other industry, when it comes to media and the Emmys and the Oscars. The shows and the movies that are at the top, even the artsy-fartsy Sundance Festival stuff that makes it into film of the year. No one watches it. No one watched it when it came out. They just watch it when it hits movie of the year, and they go, "Oh, what is that?" And then they go look it up and they go check it out. It is free marketing for the games in their studios. Black Myth Wukong, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is going to get a boost in sales because it's in the Game of the Year conversation. Freaking Balatro is going to sell even more than it already sold because it's in the Game of the Year conversation. And people are going to say, wow, a card game made it into Game of the Year? Maybe I should check that out and see what that's about. And if you like it and you like what you see, even though you may not even saw it before when it first launched, you're probably going to go buy that game. That's what all this is really about. You get nominated, you get an opportunity for more people to check your game out. I remember playing Disco Elysium, not because I heard about it. I did remember hearing about it when it first launched, and I saw it had like over a 90 Metacritic score, and everyone loved it. And I was just like, all right, but that's cool. I'll check it out eventually. But then when I saw that it had like been nominated for 4 awards in the Game of the Year show, I was like, oh. Then I saw like, Golden Joysticks and Dice were giving it its praise. I said, oh, this must be a really good RPG. And I looked it up and I saw, oh, that's different. I don't really see too many RPGs like this. And I played it. It was fantastic. Couldn't put it down. Loved the experience. But I would not have played it, most likely, if it wasn't in the video game award show conversation. They know that's how this works. It's the same way that if your game is a 90 rated meta game, more people will play it simply because it's been highly well regarded. We see people who are hype beasts for games all the freaking time. Everyone's talking about a game. We saw it with Dragon Age the Veilguard. For all the negative press or positive press it got, there were tons of people who never touched the Dragon Age game that decided to play Dragon Age the Veilguard. Why? They'll never admit because it's what everyone was talking about. It just is what it is. So I mean, and that's how this stuff works. This is, and maybe a little, quid pro quo, a little scratch of the back. Maybe next time FromSoftware is ready to show off their next game, whether it be Sekiro 2 or Dark Souls 4 or Elden Ring 2. They'll show that the Keeley's Video Game Awards show for the first time. Now, why not? You keep giving us such good press. Why don't we keep this relationship going? And it's as disgusting as I find that to be, but that's the way this industry works. So, what are your thoughts, man? What do you think about
it? For me, for the most part, I find it as it's kind of disgusting. It's like they knew that, like you said, this was something that they informed people of last year, but then they waited to the end to tell us, because you know what? We're the ones that, for the most part, make the money for that show because of all the commercials and all the things that people buy that's, promoted on there and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just find it as disingenuous to a point. It's like, it's a clear bias. It's like, as soon as we guessed it. The moment that we saw that before because they came out and talked about it like on the 16th, and they announced it on the 18th. And on the 16th, we was like, oh, all this means is Elden Ring is in the Game of the Year discussion.
Yeah,
it's gonna be nominated for Game of the Year because that's
so obvious.
It was so obvious. And the interesting thing is they didn't do this for Cyberpunk last year.
I think they would have realized it was, even though Cyberpunk at least has a better argument for it, simply because it allows you to skip the base game to play the content they were trying to award. It's still not right.
It's still not right, but that's what I'm saying. I think
they ease people into it.
Yeah, well,
because people complained about Cyberpunk being up for so many awards, Phantom Liberty, and they were just like, "This is expanding." Like it was up for, I think it actually won some that people was upset about. It may have won Best RPG. Let me take a.
Well, while you're looking up that, why won't you tell me what you think about the overall? Because we did have because it's not just DLC, it's remakes and everything. We did have a remake, Resident Evil 2, that was in the Game of the Year conversation the year it came out. Right. So do we have a different? So what do you think about
remakes? Are different than expansions because
yes, I mean they're very different. They're actual full-fledged games,
right? And I know there's some people. So also, this is what. The way the FAQ question was designed, it was set up, it's done that way. It's manipulation, and it's done that way to get people to. If you agree with one of these, then you gotta agree with all of them kind of mentality. Politicians do that in voting. In my state, I remember not in this election, but the previous election back in 2020. They put forth a question that I knew vexed some people who they looked at it, because it was like, hey, we want to make sure there's no discrimination in hiring. So we're going to put people with disabilities. This is going to be fighting. This question is to make it illegal to discriminate against people with disabilities when it comes to getting jobs. And then they also added into the question later on also the trans community. So it's like, if you are a conservative person, that creates a dilemma for you, because you want to make sure that people with disabilities get a fair shake, but then you may also not care about the trans part aspect of it. Not, We're not gonna get political, but I'm saying, that's how you kind of craft a question in politically to try to persuade a particular group of people to vote the way you want them to vote. This question added in DLC expansions, remakes, and remasters. Two of those are similar in remasters and remakes, and then the other two are similar in expansions and DLC, but they're not the same. So why'd you put them together? Because you already been doing remakes. And so if people were fine with remakes already, well, you should be fine with this too. It's a way of, whether people agree with it or not, manipulating things in order to get what you want. And I'm looking, and Cyberpunk won Best Ongoing Game last year, which made no sense because Cyberpunk is not an ongoing game. So, like, this award show is just crazy. It's just all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only one it won, but it was nominated for so many other nominations. It was nominated for Best RPG. No, it was nominated for Best Narrative. It just got all these nominations that, like, you know, a more deserving game that was actually a full-fledged game should have got a nomination for, and instead it went to a favorite of the industry instead. So
no, I think that's and you said it all. You know, when it comes just to the overall conversation around should it be allowed, should it not be allowed, it's all subjective. I just feel like at a certain point, it's like you said, if a game already had...
I need to repeat this because it is 1000% true. Gregor said ongoing patches to fix your game isn't content. That is harsh, but 1000% true for CDPR. CDPR released a broken game that came out 2 years too early. Because you fix your game to where it was supposed to be in the first place doesn't mean you deserve credit. That's the first thing I couldn't stand about games media, where they were glazing CDPR for fixing something that should have never been broken in the first place. Then you don't get the deserve. You shouldn't win Best Ongoing Game going up against, let's see here. They won Best Ongoing Game going up against this was Apex Legends, Final Fantasy 14, Fortnite, and Genshin Impact. Absolutely every single one of those other games should have won over Cyberpunk, because they are actually ongoing games that have seasons and drop content or drop actual expansions on an annual basis. Cyberpunk had one DLC, one expansion that they dropped, and they no longer, as we just talked about earlier in the show, support the game any further.
Yeah, and that was like a year and a half later, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's just, what are we talking about here? That's like you doing consistent updates to fix the game. Doesn't mean it's an ongoing game.
Wasn't Herb Tree also in the ongoing game category this year?
Let me take a look.
For some reason, I don't remember. I know I was in the stream.
I don't think it is. I don't think. But let me. Okay, best ongoing is Destiny 2, Diablo 4, Final Fantasy 14, Fortnite, and Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 should not be there because Helldivers 2 can't be in the best ongoing game category when it came out this year.
It came out this year. Yeah, that's what we.
This is for games that are long term, have been out for a long time. What should have been in Helldivers 2 spot is No Man's Sky or Sea of Thieves.
Now, No Man's Sky, that is a completely different game from the moment from 2013, 14 to now. That is you talk about a 10-year journey That's a completely different game. You know what you remember when we talked about, like you just said, games that are like how Cyberpunk was 2 years early. No Man's Sky was like 9 years early. Because that game, like everything that Murray that he had on that shot list, PvP, not PvP, multiplayer, trading and stuff, all that stuff that he had on that list, he literally got in there 9 years later, and that game is literally phenomenal now. So shout out to him and the team over there for putting that game together. It's amazing. It's a great game. But going back to the video game awards, this is why people don't like watching it, because it's disingenuous. But like you said, the only thing that sucks about it, this is like the Super Bowl of video game awards. Everybody anybody that knows that video games has an award, this is the show they think of. Like you said, the Golden Joysticks could be a better show. All of the other ones that they just do ballots for online, like, you know, all of the publications like IGN and GameSpot, they all had their own individual awards, but none of them get the creed or the clout that Jeff Keighley gets at the VGAs. So of course that's what everybody's going to watch. It's the Oscar of video games. But it's just, you know, putting this in there, it's just, to me, it's just dishonest. Honestly, it's like, why? All these other games, like, you think about, because Balatro didn't even get into the game of the year the game of the year conversation.
Wait,
it's in everybody. Oh, Balatro. Oh yeah, Balatro it's the indie game. You're right. It is the indie game. What was the game that I said that didn't get in there because of this? There's it's actually a lot of them, honestly. Prince of Persia could have been in there. There's a whole bunch of games, so we don't really have to rehatch that. And I saw Balatro cleaning up at the Joystick Awards, so I actually like the idea of that, like a poker game that's got roguelike elements. I'm like, yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. But with that, SloMo, any other things you want to talk about the VGAs before we shut it down?
No.
Nah. All right, guys. Well, first of all, we appreciate everybody that showed up to the show today. You guys are amazing. You're still 1%ers, and we appreciate all of that. With that being said, please hit the like button and share it with your friends. Sub to the channel if you haven't. We do this every Thursday, 9 p.m. On this channel, and we appreciate everybody that came through. With that being said, SloMo, tell everybody where they can find you, what you got going on, and when's your next stream of Alien Isolations or Metaphor that you said you're going to beat?
Well, I mean, I probably won't be streaming Metaphor, but I will beat Metaphor before, you know, the Game of the Year awards. If you guys want me to stream some more Alien Isolation, I'll do that. We'll have to see how things play out. Or I could stream. I thought about streaming Life is Strange. The new Life is Strange. Yeah, I thought about streaming that. So, we'll see what happens. Yeah, good show as usual, Forte.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, I appreciate that, SloMo. You know, I tried to make sure that today everybody could hear you when they needed to hear you, and everybody didn't say Forte done misspelled everything. So I put it through the I put it through the translator, said, spell check this. It's all good. That's what she told me. But
that's funny.
That's what she told me. It's all good. But with that being said, Gaming Forte, YouTube, Twitter, Xbox Live, Blue Skies, all of those places. We'll see you guys next week on back here again for episode 206. And maybe some other breaking news. You never know. Sony might actually announce that they are trying to purchase, you know, FromSoftware, or the parent company, which I'm not going to try to pronounce. But with that being said, we'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games you're playing. Hopefully you got one of those PS5 Pros. Oh, and before we walk out of here, SloMo, did you see the unboxings of that PS5 Pro 30th anniversary edition?
No, I did not.
Bro, remember how we talked about Sony having terrible packaging?
Oh, they still suck?
No, bro. Let me tell you. They put that thing
better?
on. Dog, that thing is like, you go look at some videos of people opening theirs up, like the bundled ones that came with the Edge controller. They got that thing sitting on a pedestal in the box, bro. When you take the box, it's got like one of those lift off boxes. When you lift the box up, it's like the system is sitting in like a upright position, and it looks like it's like on a pedestal. It looks so good, bro. I was like, PlayStation made this packaging?
No, I'm glad they improved on the presentation.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're spending $1,000 with the system and everything. They could at least give you, premium box.
Right.
Right. But with that being said, guys, I hope you guys enjoy your week. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.